Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. Well, it's Friday, and we've got another podcast coming out for you today. It's been a busy couple of weeks for me. The last 3 weeks consecutively, I've been at car shows. I started out 3 weeks ago at the VW Revival weekend with all that stuff going on, the RVA show and all that. The following week after that, I had head over to the DKP. Well, let's see, 2 weeks later, I headed over to the DKP 60th anniversary and the Hot VW's 50th anniversary, the Cal Look edition. So did that, had all that going on. And then this last weekend, the wife and I flew out to Niagara Falls for the German Air Niagara Falls Social and Car Show. So it was a pretty awesome event, pretty good weekend. And I'll have more of that coming up when I go ahead and do a roundtable in the next couple of weeks. This way I can talk to George about it while you guys are there, and we'll discuss a lot of the stuff over the past 3 June events that I went to, kind of break them all down and give you guys my personal feedback on a lot of stuff. I do have my 50th anniversary Cal Look book that I picked up, the ones that sold out pretty quick. Lucky enough to get Tom Kinney offered some up for sale on the Volks Group page, so I snatched one up, and I'll talk about that. I'll talk about all the stuff. So Rag Chop, I took down to the DKP meet, had the deck lid fixed. Scott Gildner hooked it up, so appreciate that guy. It looks super dope. It's all steel. Put some pictures on my Instagram for it, and you guys will see what's going on with that. But this week's podcast is really good. But before we get into what this week's podcast is about, make sure you guys go subscribe today at VW Trends Magazine. That's VWTrendsMagazine.com. Go subscribe today. It comes out every quarter, so make sure you guys go subscribe today so you don't miss a single issue. That's VWTrendsMagazine.com. Go follow those guys on Instagram, see where Dan's going to be at, and get yourself a sticker that you found Dan, and subscribe today and pick up some banners, some shirts, all that stuff. If you see Dan at some of those shows, saw him this last weekend at the VW show in Niagara Falls. So lots of good stuff going on. And for high quality aftermarket parts, make sure you guys go to Ross Wolf. That's right. The guys at Ross Wolf have got some really cool products set up for you. You want some cool jewelry for the car, go check out Ross Wolf today. That's Ross Wolf with a WULF Wolf, rosswolf.com. And don't forget to use the promo code LTD10 to get 10% off your purchase. LTD10 to get 10% off your purchase with Ross Wolf. So go check out their eye candy today. Some of my personal favorites, the stainless steel deck lid hinges, the bus dash repair panel. There's lots of cool stuff that you guys can get. So go check their website out today at rosswolf.com. Icon Pistons, the highest quality aftermarket pistons that you can get for your Volkswagen that are manufactured specifically for Volkswagens. They carry them in 85.5, 94, and 92 millimeter. These pistons are high quality, made of high silicone 4032 forged alloys. These pistons offer exceptional wear resistance and minimal thermal expansion and allow for tight piston to wall clearances. Ideal for high performance street and track engines. The hard anodized top coating and land ring grooves enhance the durability under high compression and force induction conditions. So while the M42 skirt coating reduces friction for long-term performance, it's got multiple piston heights, so you can get it for whether you got a stroker motor or a stock crank. So go check them out today at Icon Pistons. Click the link in the description below to find yourself a set of Icon Pistons for your next engine build. Now, what do Volkswagens, Boeing, and NASA all have in common? Well, I'll tell you this. The X37B, which is known as the orbital test vehicle, is something that CarbonJoe, worked on for the last 16 years. Now, he couldn't tell me too much about it because of classified situations, but what we did get out of it is carbon fiber parts for Volkswagen. So I think it's really cool. I met Joe at I met him face-to-face at the DKK meet at the Revival RVA weekend, and we got to chatting over there, showed me a few parts that he brought, and the guy just has a meticulous sense of quality with the parts that he builds. He builds them for the love of the hobby, not for a profit, because the amount of time he has manufacturing these parts is intense. But he's a solid dude, hardcore VW enthusiast from the way back, and it's so great to have somebody that's been in these other spaces with space age technology type stuff, and they're an enthusiast. So you'll get to hear the whole story from some of the first parts he made in the early 2000s for some drag racers to the evolution of where things have gone today. So if you guys want to go follow him, he's CarbonJoe on Instagram. So go give him a follow, check him out. He's got some super cool stuff. Could he make some custom parts and pieces for you? Maybe. Reach out to him. That's all that's all you could do, right? But he's a great guy with a great story. So I look forward to getting a lot of reaction from people from this podcast. So without any further ado, guys, we're going to talk to the guy who makes the baddest carbon fiber parts for Volkswagens, and that's CarbonJoe on this week's Let's Talk Dubs.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen. It's got everything that people who like the bug like.
Okay, Ray. So on today's show, we're all, listen, it's the same starting it always is, right? I'm always out there in the streets talking to people, meeting people, and getting to meet people that I come across their Instagram and that they're doing things different in the VW world. And today we have a special guest on the podcast, and I've met this gentleman a few times outside at a few car events, and I instantly find out his name is CarbonJoe on Instagram. And if you follow CarbonJoe, if you're not, you should go follow him now. He makes really cool carbon fiber parts. And on today's podcast, I've got Joe Varga out of Tustin, California. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Bill. Happy to be here.
Hey, I'm excited to have you on.
I'm excited as well.
It's you listen to the podcast, so yes. I get excited when it comes to.
I'm an avid listener.
Well, when it comes to talking about stuff that I know just enough to be dangerous about. And of course, I have the carbon cab, which is all faux carbon fiber. And you make a lot of carbon fiber parts. And obviously, you know the routine. You know how the podcast starts. We always start with, what's your VW story and how did you get into Volkswagens?
So for me, so my dad had a 71 bay window bus when I was 8 years old or so. And that was my first exposure to a Volkswagen. It was great. I have 3 older sisters, so it was, all of us, the 4 of us, and then mom and dad, and we had that for quite a while. And then come time for sisters to start driving, my dad realized that he's not going to be chauffeuring everybody around. So he goes out in 75 and he buys a 71 Super Beetle auto stick.
Oh, nice.
Which I don't know if you've talked much about the auto sticks.
My George restored a 68 auto stick, but I would love to. Wait, listen, if you got experience with auto sticks, we're gonna. I've had a few emails from some people that they're really into auto sticks. So that is not there's nothing taboo on Let's Talk Dubs. It was actually my 2 older sisters that got the car when they were in high school learning to drive, and as it progressed. I got it when I was 15 years old. My sisters kind of drove it into the ground, per se. They didn't. My dad couldn't turn a wrench, so he would just take it to have oil checked and valve adjusted and stuff like that. So it was in pretty sad shape when I got it. Yeah.
My sisters, all I knew was drive and gas.
Right.
So, and my dad said, okay, if you want this car, it's going to be $1,000. I said, well, okay, wait a minute, Dad. You let my sisters drive this damn thing into the ground,
right?
And now you're making me buy it. But be that as it may, okay, $100 a month for 10 months, no problem. So that was sophomore in high school.
What year is that?
That was 80.
And $100 a month is big money.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot.
I had to work for it. Yeah, I had to work. And then. That's how I cut my teeth on the Volkswagen. I started learning things like right away. There was ignition problems. So the distributor and rotor had never been changed. Original.
Really?
Yeah.
How many miles were on the car when they got it? Was it fairly? It was a used car?
It was used.
It wasn't.
I want to say it was in the 20,000 range or so.
Oh wow!
So it wasn't too bad.
And so by the time you get it, it's got
100 exactly.
Exactly.
I remember my sister Maria driving it. And she was driving it around the block yelling, "This sucker's about to turn over $100,000.
That's awesome. And the motor, and so they,
it's still.
Your sisters kept it running, which is Listen, no disrespect to sisters, but two of mine have blown up some cars by just not checking the oil. And on a Volkswagen,
Yes.
you got to check the oil.
Well, they knew if a red light came on, they knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
So, but, and that's, yeah, I ended up with this 71 Super Beetle. And through high school, I drove it.
Now, because in the 80s, right, you're getting in high school, it's like, it's cool at that time, right? Like they're starting to get cool. I mean, are you living in Tustin at this point?
No, at that point, I was actually, I was born and raised in Glendale, California. And then my father worked aerospace. So we went where the big work was, where the big jobs were. So he got a job up in Rockwell and Palmdale. So in 80, we moved up to Quartz Hill, which is just outside of Palmdale.
Man, you go from groovy Southern California to high desert like that.
Oh yeah, it was a shock to the system.
Farmland and just
desolate
flat
desert. Yeah, it was crazy. But my dad he knew it was something. He had to appease me somehow, so he bought me a dirt bike.
Nice.
Plenty of space to go out and ride and whatever. So okay, it was great. But meantime, I'm going to high school, and yes, the Volkswagen always needed something. So luckily enough, I had all these different shop classes. So I had a really good auto shop teacher who said, bring whatever you want and we'll work it. So my ag teacher when I was a freshman, he had a 62 Beetle, and he would ask the guys to go, change the plugs, do whatever. So, okay. So we would, for an hour a day, we wouldn't just change the plugs. We would drop the engine, change the plugs, check the compression and everything.
Right.
And then give it back to him. Happy as a pig. It's just great.
Yeah.
So that's how I learned to work more on Volkswagen.
So you're fairly mechanically
yes.
capable.
I've been blessed with a decent mechanical aptitude. My mom and dad hated it when I would get something and I would take it apart when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I wanted to see how it worked. What made this run, whatever. Like my slot cars when I was a kid, when I had AFS slot cars.
Yeah.
I used to run those I used to chop off the back end of one, chop off the front end of the other one, and make it a 4-wheel drive or a front wheel drive. Really? Yeah. Slot car. So I played with stuff like that all the time.
Yeah. I just love to tinker. This is pretty simple.
A chronic tinkerer, and still am. I tinker and dabble in a lot of different things.
So when you're at the time that you're in high school and you've got this bug and you're driving around, or you get the bug after high school?
I'm in high school. I'm sophomore in high school.
Now, are Volkswagens cool at that point? A guy's doing a cow look?
Yeah. The cow look thing.
Because it's really, it's a used car, not too old. So it could still be kind of newish, kind of a cool used car.
But it had the curse of the Super Beetle.
Yeah, true. That's the one that everybody's like, oh, bro, you get the Super, which is really crazy because it's like the 996 911, right? The 996 Porsche is 10 times better car than the 99, what is it, 99, not 997, but then the last iteration of the 911, the 993, that's the one. It's a better car than the 993. The 993 goes for 5 times more money than the 996 because they don't like it because it's got the fried egg headlights and stuff. Yeah. But it's a better car. Super Beetle, a better car. Yes. I mean, Volkswagen, what's funny is at the time, all the imports start really coming into the market, Gas Crunch, all that stuff, Datsun, Toyota. And now in that price point, there's a lot of stuff out there. American companies weren't competing with that. And then the imports come in. So Volkswagen has to do something cool. So they come out with the Super Beetle, which if you're into Volkswagens, it's a really cool advancement. If you're
technologically,
the McPherson strut front end, all that stuff. But it's like something with Volkswagen people, right? They love that traditional beam front end and all that stuff. So you got a little bit of flack in high school because it was a Super Beetle. It wasn't the cool one.
Yeah. But it wasn't a curved windscreen.
So it was a flat windshield, just the round nose. Yes. So did you lower it or did you do any of that kind of stuff when you were there?
Yes. And I did it the roundabout way to where you throw a 100-pound bag of cement in the trunk.
I had a dude named Kirby in my first club out here, and he had 2 parking curbs, cut in half, and under the hood of his car to lower the front of the Super. And what's so crazy in hindsight when you look at it, how easy it would have been to pull the struts out, cut the spring, and put it back.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But we don't think of these things.
I didn't have access to a cutting torch, so with a lot of things you had to improvise.
Right.
So I would get as much weight in the front as I could. And I would take steel straps and collapse the springs.
Oh, really? Like ones for banding pallets?
Yeah. and that worked as well.
There you go.
So because with 100 pounds in the front, it was almost a different car.
Whatever it takes to get it low, right?
Yeah.
So now you're up in the high desert area, Palmdale, Lancaster area.
Yeah.
Now, do you still have friends living over the hill from where you were?
Oh yeah. I still kept in contact with a lot of my buddies that I left from Glendale and everybody, doing different things. But I ended up with a good core group of friends out of Lancaster. And a couple of guys I was in school with had Volkswagens.
Yeah.
My one good buddy, John, he had also a 71 Beetle, but it was a 4-speed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we would, from Lancaster, we would cruise down to the beach, or a big thing was cruising the Lancaster Avenue.
Yeah.
The Boulevard. So that was kind of.
I went to not junior high. I went to, so we lived in Lancaster, California for about a year. I went to kindergarten there, Sunnyvale.
Yeah.
Sunnyvale Elementary School or whatever it was called. That's where we went. Lived on a street called Amoy, Amoy. Not a lot. I drove by the street. I thought forever growing up it was Amway Street, like the Amway products, but it was Amoy. I went by there, and as you do when you're young and you go back to look at something, it looked a lot smaller.
Oh, of course.
But then again, I was a lot smaller back then, right? Yeah. So everything looked gigantic to me. But it's interesting because when you think California, the vision in your head of California is not Lancaster. Like Lancaster is like high desert, all that stuff.
It's Palm Springs, or it's big palm trees in the surf and the coast and everything. Yeah.
And so now you had the auto stick. Did you ever have? Because what happens with the auto stick where people burn it out, there's like an electric, which is pretty ingenious, right?
Yes.
The auto stick. There's an electric servo that when you put your hand on the shifter, it engages the clutch.
Yes. So you couldn't sit at a stoplight. Well, you could sit at a stoplight, but you couldn't drive with your hand on the shift lever because it would out of gear.
Right.
And I remember so many times being in the car with friends or whoever, and I'd be driving, and I'd do that just to freak them out. You touch the shift lever, and it was like you got rear-ended. It was a bump.
Yeah.
Kicking back into gear. And did we get hit? No, it's just messing with it.
So did you keep it? Because what's funny is I was talking to someone the other day, and they said they had a car that was an auto stick, and then the first thing they had to do was drop the motor and trans and convert it to a 4-speed. And I was like, that's crazy how much work that is, instead of just fixing the better technology in the auto stick cars.
I never had a problem with it. Gosh, so many miles, even after I got it from my sisters and everything. And I used to shift in low gear, start in low gear, shift up to 1, then down to 2. But there's only one time it gave me problems, and that was vacuum leaks. So on the intake manifold, there's like a 1/2-inch vacuum line coming off the intake manifold, going to a vacuum tank, and then it goes to the servo. But that was the only time I had issues with it was a vacuum leak. And it wasn't too hard to figure out.
Right.
So until one day, there's more to that because I customized it the way I wanted to do it. So I painted it Ford Grabber blue.
Right.
I had
and we got something in common. Those were the first smoothies on my car were Ford Grabber blue. I mean, the car was primered, but Ford Grabber blue was the available paint. The blue that you got that was like gumball blue.
Yeah. I remember it because in Glendale we had a neighbor that had a Pinto that was Ford Grabber blue, and I loved that color. Yeah, just my favorite.
So you rattle can the car?
No. I did all my own body work on it. I shaved the turn signals. I bought a bumper with the turn signals and bumper. And I did cowlook windows and stuff, but I stripped it all out, interior out, stripped it all out, and had it painted for a friend of mine. I think it was like $1,500, and
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, this is 83 or 84, and doing all that and everything. My mom was, and is still, an incredible seamstress. She made all of my sister's clothes growing up.
Really?
So she had a sewing machine. Said, "Mom, give me a hand with something. I want to redo the interior on my Bug." And she says, "Okay, what do you want to do?" I says, "Well, I picked up a set of 280Z seats, and I want to put them in, but I want to do a tan velour interior." And she said, "Okay." So she said, "Take the seats apart,
stitch by stitch,
unstitch everything, and give them to me, and I'll make patterns, and we'll stitch it back together in velour, the tan velour. Go get the material." So there was a textile place in town where I went and got a couple hundred, I don't know, I think it was like 6 yards of tan velour. And then the door panels, I saw, I don't remember where I saw it. Maybe it was how somebody was doing it, but I just got a 1/4 inch foam and then spray glued the velour onto the foam, and then Mom stitched a square pattern into it. So I had square pattern door panels.
Like biscuit tuck door panels.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so she did the front seats the same. The center patch was with the stitch with the square, and then the back seats too. She covered that. And then I remember driving down to Small Car Specialties in Orange County and picking up a tan carpet kit, and then putting that all in there, spray gluing all that stuff and everything. So I was doing pretty good. I was happy with it. I loved it. It looked great. It had a really good stance to it. I remember.
What'd you have on it? Chromies, or what'd you have for
No,
wheels?
I had Rivieras.
Rivieras.
Yeah.
It's a good looking wheel.
Color matched Rivieras.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Ford Grabber blue.
If I were around these, I think that was a full custom car. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you're talking blue.
Yeah. And I polished the Rivieras and everything, hand polished them. So yeah, it looked nice. I was happy with it.
Yeah.
I loved it. And then this was
painted bumpers or chrome?
Chrome.
Okay.
And then I had louvered stainless steel running boards.
Nice.
So, and then tinted one-piece windows and tinted windows all the way around. So yeah, I loved it. It was a great car, but it still had the stock 16.
The original motor?
Original motor. It got pretty tired on me, and I knew I had to do a compression test on it one time, and number 3 was down to like 70 PSI. So I knew, it's time. So I tore the engine out, and I actually really only rebuilt the top end.
Left the bottom end together.
Yeah, left the bottom end together. And learning, that's where I learned more about how the automatic transmission part of the transmission, because on the back end of the oil pump was another oil pump.
Right.
A smaller geared pump for the automatic transmission fluid.
For the pressure.
For the torque converter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I just learning more about it. And so I just rebuilt the top end, put a 1641, so 87s in it, slip ins, and then 041 heads, nothing, just whatever. I just kept the stock carb on it. And that was my commuter. That's where I was driving back and forth to work. And in 85, my father worked aerospace. He was working at Northrop in Newberry Park, California, which is right outside of Ventura, up the hill from Ventura by Thousand Oaks. And I got a job there. And
that was kind of the thing back then, right? Like if your dad, remember my dad worked at Caesar's Palace. He's like, if you get into Caesar's, you're in. And I'm like, because there's always the thing, right? Aerospace in California, or you kind of follow what your dad does. And I got to first day at work at Caesar's Palace. I'm like, there ain't a window in this place, man. I can't take this. But yeah, you kind of follow your family's footsteps. So what did your dad do in aerospace? So
my father, he was a tool and die maker.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, his tool and die maker was his main thing. But he was a machinist. He was a jig and fixture builder. He did it the old way. When he came to this country, it was just my mom, and by that time it was my oldest sister. And right away went to work.
And your parents were Hungarian immigrants.
Yes, Hungarian. In 1956, they immigrated to the U.S. from Hungary to flee the Russian occupation of Hungary. So they came out with my uncle. So all of my relatives, except for 2 cousins, are still back there, all in Hungary.
Really? Yeah.
And like we were talking earlier about the genealogy of it, I did my DNA, and I am 99.9% Eastern European.
Yeah.
So
well, that's right there. You know what I mean? Like mine does say Greek, but it's crazy when you go back there, and I attribute like my genealogy being so predominantly Greek, like 92%. My dad would say that the machine's broken. It's wrong by 8% because my dad told me I married your mother for breeding purposes so that my children would be thoroughbred Greeks. Because the funny part is people from the old country, they really had a sense of pride of their nationality.
Oh, yes.
And what their country contributed to the world.
Yes.
And so like you, my parents were immigrants to this country. And it was interesting because I tell people all the time, my dad had the Greek immigrant plan, like come to this country, start a restaurant, then buy the real estate. Then, because I had other family that did that, but my dad got a divorce early on. So that's why we ended up out here on the West Coast, because I was born in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always like this immigrant plan where they come here, they get a job, then they work at the restaurant, then they buy the restaurant or start their own restaurant, then they buy the real estate, and then they just kind of keep
grow. They just prosper.
Take advantage of the wonders this country has to offer,
Exactly.
which is the freedom to be a deadbeat or
Successful, yes.
or an entrepreneur, right?
Or just a happy family man.
Yeah.
And that's what my father was. So my mom never worked a day in her life until later on when she opened her own deli with my sister. But growing up, they came to this country. They moved to. They came across when they came into New Jersey off the boat. They were handed $20. Have a good life.
Really?
Yeah. So with $40, mom and dad, and I think they just had one suitcase between the two of them. They made it to San Diego.
Wow.
They were sponsored by my father's cousin, Margaret. And they lived there for a little while. And dad got a job as a machinist and just started going.
So being a machinist, he was a kind of a patient, methodical dude.
Yes. And I remember, and I'll never forget this, when I started to work on machines and become a machinist, he said, this is what I had to work with for 1 year. He showed me 3 files, a fine, a coarse, and a rat tail file.
Really?
I did this for a year. This is what I started with. That's what he told me. He, deburring, filing square, whatever. This is, and that's how methodical and tedious he was.
Yeah.
But not only that, but he was a mathematical genius.
Really?
My father, yes. So when it come to machining, so if you had to tilt the head of the mill to a certain degree to achieve what you wanted, you'd have to put a sign plate up there, figure out, okay, the degree of this. And then my dad could do that in his brain.
Yeah.
He could just, okay, that's a 17 degree. You're going to have to kick the head this way
right.
and bring it in, sweep it
his
in.
His brain just works where he sees that. Like, I've met people like that are just like.
But he couldn't change the spark plugs in his car.
Yeah.
It's like, that kind of, to this day, it kind of baffled me, but that's just the way he was.
Well, and I think maybe, from his background being from another country, it was like he's established his job and this is going to provide him his life and he will be really good at this. And when he's not doing that, he doesn't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Because they're kind of raised that way in the old country. Like whatever you do, you're going to be the best at doing it. But like the shoemaker has no shoes, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's one of those things where he's at home. He's just at home. And I think, but I also think, right, your dad grows up and we're really impressionable when we're teenagers.
Yeah.
And I think as a teenager, like you see a car and you're like, oh, that car to me equals freedom. And for him, it was like, I got to get out of this country and it'll equal freedom. Mm-hmm. And then his goal is like realized by just being here, stable job, family's healthy, and he's just working. And for us, it's like, all right, we're already taking that stuff for granted. We're looking for we're looking for a cool car to be driving around on a Saturday night because the car, because again,
our car is our outlet,
right? Our baseline of what they fought for is our baseline. Yeah. I tell my kids all the time, like, listen, you were raised in the Garden of Eden, and like God says in the scriptures, you got to go and you got to go figure it out on your own now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And so it's funny. My son moved out, and he says, "Oh man, we're getting our first power bill. It looks like it's gonna be like $400." And I'm like, well, just turn it up. He's like, I tried to put it at 75, but my wife was like, no, they lived with us for a couple of years. And I married the ice princess. She keeps it at 70 and it's chilly. Like I watched my father-in-law turn the fan off the other day. It's 105 degrees outside and it's too cold in the house. And I'm thinking, well,
you're going to get it.
Everybody's spoiled over here. And my son's like, man, I can't believe, he's starting to do some adulting. And it was funny that he's like, geez, I can't believe how much the power bill is going to be. I said, yeah, now you're going to be like a dad. Now you're going to yell like, hey, who's leaving the door open? We're trying to air condition the whole outside.
Turn the light off.
But it's, it's funny. It's that part of that process. And I think that's what makes us the car guys, right? Like we see something at a young age when we're in that impressionable part where it's like, as a kid, your next thing is like, okay, my next benchmark is my driver's license because driver's license equals freedom. Right.
Yes.
And I can't just be free and be happy. I got to be free and looking cool. Right. So I got to get a Volkswagen. So you kind of, that's what, and it's funny because we look at that and it's like, okay, I'm going to drive Volkswagen and I'm going to fix it myself. I'm going to work on it myself and do those things.
Have that Volkswagen comes with responsibility.
Yeah.
If you're going to drive it, you're going to take care of it.
It weeds people out of the hobby real quick.
Exactly.
Real quick, and it's the thing that you see people and you have that common bond. Like, yep, you've been clutch cabled before. You've been throttle cabled before. Yeah. And it's like, guess what? You got to get home.
Yeah. You got to make it work. Yeah. I've done that. I've kept a spool of string in the car.
Yeah.
Just for what I don't know, but I ended up using it for a throttle cable.
Now, let me ask you this. Since your parents were Hungarian, did they hang around a Hungarian culture of people?
Yes.
So did you guys have the Hungarian mechanic? Because my friend who's Korean, his mom had the Korean mechanic that he had to go to. And then I had Stavros, the Greek mechanic I had to go to. And everything was $250 at Stavros' place. Didn't matter what it was. And usually when you drove away, you probably still had the same problem. But yeah, did you had like the...
I don't remember who in Glendale that my father used, but I remember him having a clutch problem one time with the bay window.
Yeah.
And going to a guy, and he was probably the same mechanic that works on the Super Beetle before I got it, doing the valves and what have you.
And your dad probably bought Volkswagens because it was a sensible vehicle to
Yes.
carry his family around.
Yes.
And so from that, like you get kind of brought into this whole VW thing, and then following your dad's footsteps, you go into aerospace.
Yeah.
And now and you go to aerospace, this is before you need a bachelor's degree and all stuff. Like you can kind of work your way up there. Exactly. So what did you start out doing in aerospace?
So I had some machining background, so shop class and everything. And then I worked for a machinist a little bit on the side. My dad had a little machine shop for himself.
Oh, at home?
At home. He had a couple mills, a lathe, a couple surface grinders and stuff like that.
And he wouldn't do hobby stuff. If someone needs something fixed, you bring it to him and he fix it.
Yes. Or if you had a small run job, 20, 30 pieces of something or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. He'd knock it out in the garage. Yeah.
Like just completely make parts or whatever?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's like where they had the dials you had to determine.
Oh, yeah. It was no digital readout or anything.
You've heard my story,
dials.
man.
Yeah.
I got 30 minutes of machine time in my background. That was 29 minutes too much because I don't have the brain. I don't have the calmness in my brain to just work. My buddy Justin at Beetle Barn, he just put me on this lathe. He says, just take this thing and then just bring that, just keep doing that back and forth. And like, I'm like the fourth pass. I'm like, I'm going to lose my mind. I can't do this. And I'm like, that's good enough. He's like, that bro, you can get it weight measure or not. It's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Cause I'm going to go crazy looking at the machine. Mm-hmm. But so your dad's doing machining stuff at home. You got a little bit of experience. You start working in aerospace.
Yes. So at, what was I, 21 or so? Yeah. He got me a job at Northrop. And at the time they had an apprenticeship program going on.
Invaluable if they started
exactly
again.
Very rare, very, very rare. And I was lucky enough to get in it, and it was tooling. So they had several different ways. You had jig and fixture builders, you had tool and die makers, and then you had soft tooling, which was a new thing. It was kind of okay. And my dad got me in, and I did tool and die for a while, learning the machines and everything. And CNCs were just coming out.
So when you say tool and die, like you're making the bits that go on the lathes?
No. So these are tools that would make aircraft parts.
Oh.
So tool being the tooling to make, if you're making a duct or a gauge panel or actual panel of the plane, everything's got to be pretty precise. So you would make a tool to make this part.
So if like there's an inside corner of a piece, you make a stamp that would stamp that piece. Is that what you mean by tool?
That would be a die. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a die. Yeah.
Yeah,
see what I know? This is why we have you on here.
That's okay.
So a die would be something you'd use in a stamp.
Yeah.
And a tool would be something that
would so you would take say if you had to drill 10 holes in a precise hole pattern, you would take a panel that's already been cut out, you would lay it down into this tool, and then you would either place another tool on top of it that had all the drill bushings and everything, location figured out, and you would just drill it and then take it apart. And
so the tool is essentially the fixture
exactly
that you attach to the machine that helps you guide everything to happen.
But there's so many different things. That's just it. People don't realize how many thousands of parts are on an airplane or on a spacecraft.
So you guys were doing anything exciting you ever worked on that we would know of?
That I can tell you about?
Yeah,
yes.
That you can tell us about.
Yeah, well, the first project I worked on was a B2 program.
So the B2,
yeah,
they're in my office at work, but one of the because here we have Area 51,
yes,
not far from here, and we have people
supposedly. Well,
yeah, I think that's public at this point, but they're there's a person who worked for me that her dad worked on the Air 51 program. So I've got some patches and some glasses that have the stealth bomber, all that stuff on there, which almost ties directly into you, right? Because the reason that some of the younger listeners may not know this, the reason why the stealth fighter was so capable was why?
It was undetectable by radar.
Because what is it coated in?
Oh, well, yes, it's coated in a reflective, radar reflective material that makes it undetectable. It's so the footprint of like a B-2 bomber on
a radar that is detectable.
That is detectable is I think like a 9-inch circle. So very, very small.
So almost insignificant. Radar wouldn't even pick it up.
Yeah, exactly.
It won't. It'll say like
But with advances, now we have satellites that'll detect a lot of stuff too. So it's constantly changing.
Yeah. Well, no, and my understanding in the aerospace world, right? Like what we know about today, what we don't know about is 30 years in the future. Exactly. Yeah, because the stealth program is in the late 60s, early 70s. They started on it, right?
Yeah, the design of it, was the B-2. Well, the B-2 was modeled after Jack Northrop's Flying Wing. So that design was in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, it's crazy. What's funny is I've had conversations, and I saw him today at lunch, and I vowed to get him on the podcast. Is Peter Brock? Now, Peter Brock was BRE Racing that raced the Datsuns, but his background, he was at 19, he worked for General Motors, and he was on the design team for the Stingray Corvette. He went on he designed the Daytona Coupe. That Shelby was their second car.
Nice, yeah.
He's got a shop here. He's like in his 80s, sharp as a tack, but he's a aerodynamics guy. Like he's really into low drag and all that stuff. And he's just such a neat guy, but again, comes from a point where he went to like a Pasadena design school for 2 years. And then boom, he's working for General Motors. Back when it was so much easier to not have to work or go to school for 12 years to go do a job. Instead, you went and learned what you needed to know. And then the rest was kind of hands-on training. And so through your experience doing that, I mean, what different types of materials have you, like you were working with carbon fiber when?
Oh, well,
the first time you had seen carbon fiber was when?
Was probably 6 months after I started working at Northrop.
And that's what year?
86.
And so we don't start getting carbon fiber to the public till the 2000s.
Yeah, close to 2000s. Or actually, bicycles was a big thing. Carbon fiber bicycles was huge back in the mid 90s.
Right.
And they were very innovative. But
the cost of making them was that was the upper echelon.
Crazy. It's another exotic material. There was titanium, but then there was carbon fiber.
So now what most of our listeners know of, right, is fiberglass. And I'm sure there's some guy yelling at the radio right now going, no, I know about carbon fiber, but I'm going to start with my knowledge. And my knowledge is we had Bruce Meyer on here, and he was studied the world of fiberglass working on boats, right?
Yeah.
So it was a lightweight material that was as strong as steel in certain applications, right? For deflection and warpage and stuff like that, and heat distribution, stuff like that. What makes carbon fiber at its core so much different than
first of all,
fiberglass? Or how do we get into this understanding?
Full disclosure,
yes,
I am not an expert in composites, nor do I claim to be an expert in composites. So I know,
but you know more than me.
Okay. Carbon fiber, as in tensile strength, it's 9 times stronger than steel.
9 times.
9 times stronger than steel. And the weight saving properties is so much more better than aluminum or steel or even titanium. But there's still, so many planes and spacecraft and everything still requires a lot of titanium.
Right, because titanium is really, really durable. But then titianium, weight-wise, it's not super light, is it?
Yes.
Titanium is it lighter than aluminum?
Relative, if you had to compare the same two parts, yes, it would be. But the strength factor is so many times more than aluminum. Again, I'm not a metallurgist.
And titanium you guys would get from Timet Steel here Would you get it from TyMet here?
Where we received it from, I have no idea.
Yeah, because TyMet is a big plant that was here.
Oh yeah,
there was a jet fuel plant plus TyMet was here. TyMet Field, which was I think it was a titanium plant. Unless I could be talking outside of my neck, guys. We don't really know. We just kind of go off on a tangent.
Yes, the thing about with the carbon fiber, when I started working at Northrop, we were making a lot of molds, slush molds.
What's a slush mold?
So a slush mold is we would get a design to make a tube. So this could be a tube that has got 10 different bends in it and 3 or 4 different T's coming off of it. So these are pretty intricate tubes for air or fuel or other things that are going to go in the aircraft.
And the reason you need a tube that's got 9 different outings on it and all this stuff, I don't know what you would call it, but transitions and all that kind of stuff, is because anytime you put like a PVC pipe together and there's every joint is a possibility for a leak or failure or something like that.
This could be, I mean, it could be life support systems on the aircraft, breathing apparatuses or whatever. So we made a lot of tubes at the Northrop in Newbury Park. And one of the things, we made is a slush mold die. So we would either have a machine, we would machine the tube in sections, split it 50-50, and we would have to make one side, and then we would make the other side. And then we did a paraplast pour. We had a dissolvable, almost like concrete, because we would pour this paraplast into it. It would cure. Then we would break the mold apart, take the mold out, and then we would dry it 100%, and then we would take it to the composite shop where they would wrap it in carbon fiber, different areas. They were told how to keep the strength, to wrap it so much here, so much material,
right,
here, whatever, and then bag it up, send it to the autoclave, cook it, bring it back out, cool it down and everything, and then they would take the part after the bag is off and everything, and they would take it over to a water bath, and the paraplast would melt out of it.
Just like dissolve
out of it. And
is it crazy? Like in your background of working with stuff, you've seen technology that we have for manufacturing stuff that you're like, if the rest of the world knew about this, they could manufacture A, B, and C so much quicker and easier. And I think that's the great thing about our hobby. I've said this several times, is that a lot of us guys are getting older. We've got different backgrounds and different areas of expertise and things like that, where it was a job and like, who would ever contract someone to do that? Who did I just have on the podcast where they said they would get a chance to make parts and the boss would have them make some parts for them for something. And they like, well, can I throw in a couple things for me and just make a couple parts out of some scrap or whatever? And it's just like to have the access to the technology of a $1 million machine, just to buzz out a little thing. And what's funny is we end up with some of those things now on top of technology catching up with the regular people, between 3D scanning and 3D printing and all that stuff. Now it's jumping by leaps and bounds. But as a breakdown from a standpoint, fiberglass is interwoven pieces of glass strands,
or chopped glass laid on top of each other, and then saturated with polyester or epoxy.
Right.
9 times out of 10, it's going to be polyester, because polyester is cheaper than epoxy.
Right. And it's it's like a 2-part catalyst. It's a catalyst cured liquid.
Yes. Epoxy is usually like a 25 to 1, 25 parts to 100 parts epoxy. But where polyester is the kicker, the ingredient is MEKP, which is the chemical that reacts with polyester that cures it. Yeah, which is only 2%, because it's a very little amount compared to the base amount.
Right. And then what makes carbon fiber different is that carbon fiber, not only does it have a resin that gets infused, I'm assuming some sort of liquid, something that gets infused.
Well, yes.
But it also needs to be cured through the autoclave, like vacuum. Like, what's the difference in the process with because carbon fiber, right?
With carbon fiber, you could make fiberglass parts the same way you make a carbon fiber part. I could lay up in a mold, I could just lay up fiberglass and use it epoxy and make a fiberglass part the same way I would make a carbon fiber part.
So the raw carbon fiber, the sheet good, is available retail to anybody. You want to go buy?
Oh yeah, you could buy
fiber.
You could buy 10 rolls or 10 yards of twill weave, 6-ounce cloth. There's many distributors, but it's
not itchy like fiberglass.
To some people, yes. To some people, my wife walks out into the garage and she starts itching. So I have to I have to kind of.
It may be psychosomatic with the wife. Half the things I do, my wife's allergic to.
But some people it does. I've been lucky enough to where I've been immune to a lot of it. I don't even cutting and trimming fiberglass. I've never itched.
Oh, really?
I've never bare armed, no sleeves, nothing.
My first job, I was 13 years old. I worked at a place called Vegas Vets. They were paying me $3 an hour, and they would order ground effects kits it had to be like 82. That next gen Corvette came out, might have been 84. I think it had to be 84 because that year, that generation Corvette was out. I'm working there, 85 because I've been 13. I'm working there, and the first day I'm done with work, and I was waxing molds was my job. Yeah. I was waxing parts because they would order ground effects kits. I would wax them. They would make molds off of them, then return the kits, and they would just make their own ground effects kits or whatever. And it was like I had a pair of pants that you could like stand them up in the corner.
Yeah. So much resin's been poured on it.
It was the most miserable week, maybe a week and a half of my life, and then I got fired when I told them I could drive a stick shift. And I tried to pull a Corvette out, and that turned into a whole situation.
See, but the thing, so that's why I only use epoxy resin on all my parts. I do use a gel coat, tooling coat of polyester, but that's just for tooling coat.
So when you say, like with fiberglass, they have what they call the gel coat. What is the difference between the resin and the gel coat? Or is it the same?
It's a lot of the same compounds, but usually a gel coat is your top coat. Mm-hmm. That's either your tooling coat or the gel coat of like the Manx. That what you saw is an orange gel coat is laid into the mold first, and then they're chopper gunned all the material afterwards.
Because you're doing it reverse, right? You're putting the outer layer first,
exactly.
Then you're putting the under layer. It's the same with what you do with the carbon fiber and stuff.
Yeah, when I make a mold. At first, there's many steps you got to follow through after you make a mold. You got to seal it, you got to polish it, and then you have to apply your wax or your release, whatever you're going to use. So after that, then but with carbon fiber, you want the look of carbon fiber, not only the performance.
Right. You're not trying to cover it up.
Yeah, exactly. So like my parts, my infused parts, it's raw resin.
So when you say infused, is that where it uses the vacuum bag and it sucks all the air out?
Exactly.
Because then it forces all of that into every little nook of that. Because with fiberglass, I guess the fiberglass is so sloppy. I guess the weave,
so resin thick.
The weave is so sloppy.
Yeah.
Resin gets through all of it.
Yeah, and after guys chopper gun something, be it a hot tub or a Manx body, 9 times out of 10 they're coming back with rollers and they're saturated. Yeah, exactly. You're getting all of the air out because if you have air trapped in a composite, it's going to be weak.
Next thing you know, you're in the Titan.
Yeah. I saw that too.
I just watched the documentary last week, and I'm like,
crazy.
Yeah, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, the Titan is a carbon fiber tube that they try to take down to the to look at the Titanic. So go look at the documentary; it'll freak you out.
Yeah. There's so like a lot of us, we rely on Facebook forum or actually groups.
Yeah.
And I'm in one of the composite fabricator Facebook groups.
Yeah.
110,000 people in this group.
That's wild.
And that was a huge topic was of the Titan, the sinking of the Titan and the destruction and so many theories because nobody had, after it happened, everybody was just guessing.
Correct.
But so many people saying, oh yeah, it's probably a DLAM someplace, it could only take so many cycles. And then,
That's scary, man.
Oh my gosh.
And then the craziest part is like he had a remote, he had like a Sony PlayStation remote controlling the thing.
Oh.
I mean, look, he was a little unorthodox, right? But
yeah,
when you think about like 50 dies, here's what's funny. In the Volkswagen world, I was just shout out to my guy Maurice now, or Morris, they call him. His street name is Bibio68. So we found out his first license plate. He was with Russell and those guys, and he works. He's a VW idiot like the rest of us, but he works in the industry of making, what do they call it? Not subterranean, but like marine grade stuff that's got to go submersibles,
yes.
Yeah. So he has a tank. We got on the topic of the Titan thing, but I said, so Russell because Russell does oil rig inspections. I said, oh, so you know him because you guys are kind of in the similar things. He says, no, we met through Volkswagens. But I guess when you live in Scotland, like you're surrounded by water, you gotta get a job in the water. But that's what he does. And it was funny because we're just talking about topics of things that, you know, go underwater, take pressure, and the testing stuff that they have for things like this. So it's interesting through the technology of space race stuff, we end up with better performance parts and more lightweight, more, because there's always been a thought that I've had with respect to fiberglass parts. And because as you're coming over today, I was thinking, man, I wonder why doesn't anybody make like cooling tin for like a type 3 out of carbon fiber?
Mm-hmm.
And then part of me thinks like, well, maybe it being made of metal helps with the heat transfer to get rid of heat. Or because I think of that, right? You've got the tin on top of the cylinders. Now, does that help the heat dissipate? Or if you put carbon fiber, would the engine run cooler? All right. And how much does the heat cycle go back and forth? Because you're going cast iron to tin or thin steel. So I don't know. It's just a question that I have because I often think like when you look at modern Chevrolets and stuff like that, like the LSs, they all have plastic intake manifolds, like extruded plastic intake manifolds. And so I thought, well, how come nobody's doing, especially because I think the cylinder head, right? But the cylinder head's got the aluminum manifolds. Well, how much the aluminum manifolds act as a heat sink to dissipate heat? You know, I had this conversation with
was it Klaus?
Gerald Klaus.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Great podcast.
Yeah, because of some of that heat and thermal transfer, because in the antiquated world that we are demanding to live in of the air-cooled technology, it's like, how do we perfect it so much? And all we got to do is look at Porsche, right? Porsche took it as far as it could go up to the 993 with, you know, the Nicosil plating and all that kind of stuff. And what's crazy is it's so expensive now. Well, not now, I guess just the process to Nicosil plate, you know, the cylinders and the pistons, which is what Porsche did. And I had him on my last Jake Raby motor because he does that. And a set of pistons and cylinders is like, at the time, was like $3,500 for a set of pistons, when you could get $300 for a set, $300 or $500 for a set of pistons. But if you get them Nicosil plated, but it's interesting because I think like that's one of the ways that Porsche kept the air cooled thing going as far as it could, trying to make it more efficient and cool better and all that stuff. And so, there's so many different things that they make out of carbon fiber. So as you're doing this, are you still an enthusiast? How long do you have a car for to where you don't have a car and then you get back into it or getting into it? Or have you always been kind of helping the scene from the outside? Or
well, I since with that Super Beetle, I've always had a Volkswagen. Meanwhile, while I have this Ford Grabber Blue Bug,
right,
which I loved driving so much, a friend of mine approached me and said, "Hey, I've got a neighbor that's got a 79 convertible that it was an insurance claim because the original owner tried to set fire to it. So he put a flare on the back seat and just melted everything. Yeah. And so he's got it, and he restored a lot of it. The interior he went through and did a few things. But he was fit to be tied with it. So he said, I'm done with it. And he wanted to sell it. So my buddy came to me and said, hey, this neighbor's got this 79 convertible. It had 18,000 original miles on it. And this is 85. And I went and looked at it, and mechanically it was still good. The engine was great, everything. And so I bought it. So I had my Blue Bug, and then I had a triple black 79 convertible.
The epilogue edition.
Epilogue edition, yes.
Well, if you've heard I read a letter from Russell Ritchie, who's a Volkswagen collector, and he's like, Bill, because I did a couple late model episodes. We talked about late models. He says, Bill, you're way off base. The 79s, they're going for big money. And then as we've seen through Bring a Trailer and stuff like that, there's a few low mileage model Beetles that sell for a lot of money. And back to talk about technological advancements, the most advanced Beetle that they made would have been the 79 Beetle, right? So do you still have?
I still have it.
You still have the 79.
79, but no longer the 71.
What happened to the 71?
So the 71, this was 86. I was living in Moore Park, and I wanted to go down to Scat to pick up a dual quiet pack exhaust. So I'm driving down the 405 in the fast lane, and I'll never forget where. right off Normandy, and traffic came to a stop right in front of me. I had to stop pretty fast. The guy in the Volvo station wagon behind me didn't stop.
Oh, no way.
He used my car to stop.
Holy crap. Just
So
completely totaled it?
Yes. It shortened the whole car by about 4 feet. It just, I pushed me into the car in front of me, folded in the nose. He pushed the engine forward a couple inches. He nailed me.
Wow.
And that was it.
What a bummer, man.
I was, I was devastated because
and the guy said, like, what do you care about this old bug for? And you're just like, bro, you don't get it.
Yeah. He said, oh, you could go to a junkyard and replace this. Dude, this car's done.
Right.
You've ruined it. It would take forever and so much. Anyway, there was an insurance claim out of it. Man, I got some money for it, but I was able to salvage the interior. I sold it to a guy I was working with, all the tan interior.
Hand sewn by your mom.
My mom. Yeah, I know. It was awesome.
That one ups my buddy Sean. My friend Sean had his interior hand sewed by his girlfriend.
Oh.
Well, that doesn't usually work out. It didn't, right? But I mean, we used to give him a hard time because it's like, bro, you got the sweetest velour interior. He's like, yep. Josanna sewed it for him. I'm like, bro, if I only had a girlfriend that could sew, because it's just, again, it's one of those things that's like, when you really think about it, doing anything is not that hard.
Yeah.
If I think the hardest part of doing anything is just getting the courage to try to do it.
Yeah. And that's a big step of it. Yes. Yes. But I mean, sewing, well, my mom taught me a little bit how to sew, and I did with composites. We stitched together composites. We made a dry preform stitching.
Really?
Yeah. So, and that increased the strength of the composite. But that was one of the many things I've learned from my mother, of course. Like all of us, we learned so many different things. But after that, the car was done. I sold the interior, the engine. I sold some stuff, and then off to the scrapyard it went.
Now what? So you just have the 79. You still have the 79?
I still have the 79.
How many miles are on it now?
I think I'm at like 75,000 or so.
And it's still in pretty decent shape.
Oh yeah, the car itself. Well, it's so.
Is it lowered stock? What is it?
In California, we still have to smog our cars.
Yeah.
And the 79,
so ridiculous.
76 and up, you still have to smog everything.
And 75 was that was the only year they did fuel injection, or the first year they did fuel injection?
First year they did fuel injection, 75.
So your car's fuel injected too.
Yeah, L-jet fuel injection, which very temperamental.
Is it really?
If you get a vacuum leak or a sensor or something, if the head temp sensor on number 3 is just, I learned a lot messing with that injection, but I had the hardest time getting it smogged. Yeah. So the way around it is I built a 2110 with dual 44s, and I had a couple Berg items on there, the pulley and stuff, and every 2 years I would swap in and out the 2110 with the fuel injected engine, get it smogged, take it home, swap back in the 2110, and drive it.
So you still got the 20. Now, is it stock or is it lowered, or do you
lowered in the front? I had polished 8-spoke empties on it.
Nice.
And it was a great car. But at the time, so got married, my wife and I living together and everything, but work. So at the time I was working at Boeing, and this is just as I was starting to get into making carbon fiber parts for cars. I got really busy at work. I got put on mandatory 10s and then mandatory 12s.
And that's 5 or 6 days a week?
7.
So 7 12s?
Yeah.
Good
I worked.
grief.
There's several, for the one specific project I work on, there were several times when we worked 6 months straight, 12 hours
No
a day.
days off.
No days off.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So when I started making parts for people in 04, 05, I had to stop because I just got so busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I credit to making the parts, I credit Dominic Lupino.
Oh, yeah?
So I worked with a guy named Sal. Sal Lupino was Dominic Lupino's brother.
Yeah.
And Sal knew that I was making RC car parts just for my own car, doing a little stuff at home. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, can you make carbon fiber pieces that small?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Turnbuckles or arms,
Really? Like A-arms?
A-arms.
You can make them out of carbon fiber?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's tedious. It's almost
Yeah,
jewelry work. But,
I was going to say,
you could.
That seems like a whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, would you make it out of, like, make a piece of waffle flat and then carve it out of it? Or
yeah,
what'd
you would.
do?
You
Okay.
just a flat
Because
stock.
I'm sitting here in my head, I'm watching you roll the A-arms individually and tube them together. I'm like,
no. It was a flat piece of stock, and then you would drill a hole for the ball joint for the front suspension or whatever. Yeah, I did some of that.
But you'd epoxy it. You wouldn't tap it. You wouldn't have to tap it.
I would tap it. Yeah.
So you tap the resin?
Yeah. I would tap it and then put resin in it to seal the ball joint onto the A-arm.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's tedious.
I was big into RC cars for a little while. So yeah.
And people are like, where are you getting these carbon fiber arms? You're like, don't worry about it.
I was making for bodies. So I made it a carbon fiber Ultima body for RC car. I got the clear plastic body, $8 or whatever. And I pulled a mold off of it, and I was making single ply carbon fiber bodies for RC cars.
Now they're the same weight as the plastic, or they're actually lighter?
About the same because
they're very
very thin.
But it's like you could flick it, and it's just
but you could crash the car, and the carbon fiber. Well, same with the Lexan body. They're pretty tough too. They have to be. So, but anyway, Sal knew that I was doing stuff on the side, and he said, "Hey, my brother races Volkswagens, and he's looking for some carbon fiber parts to lighten up his car." And I said, okay, never really thought about it, but because Sal knew I was driving my Bug to work and everything. I said, okay, I'll give it a try. I met Dominic, and he brought his car over to the house, and I started pulling molds. The first parts I made for him were a set of running boards.
So a set of running boards, the size of the mold for the running board is how much bigger than the running board?
It's 6 inches on each end and 4 inches on the side. So a running board is like right at 54 inches long or so. So it's a little bit bigger, but I see the way I do my mold, especially for infusion, everything you got to make bigger.
Right.
You have to have flanges, 2, 4, 6 inch flanges around everything. So you have to make room for layup for the bag and your tape and everything to seal it.
So now with carbon fiber, explain to me. They have autoclave, which is like a heat. It's like a heat.
A pressurized oven.
So it's a pressurized oven.
Yes.
So when you put something in an autoclave, does it need to be bagged? Or
yes.
It's bagged.
Yes.
They vacuum the air out to try to pressurize the carbon. So walk me through the process because I'm just making stuff up right now.
So an autoclave is a pressurized oven. It's a vessel. We had one at Northrop. It was the size of a submarine.
Wow.
It was 2 layers. We would roll in carts with hundreds of parts on them because that one run on an autoclave, $10,000-$20,000.
Yeah, in gas to heat the thing.
Yes, exactly. In a nitrogen and electricity to heat it. Yeah.
What do they use nitrogen for instead of oxygen?
So pressure.
Oh, they pressurize it with nitrogen.
Yeah.
So they pressurize the tank. They pressurize the oven.
Yeah.
And then they heat it up to how high?
Depending on what system, but usually about 350 to 400 degrees.
And what is the heat acts as another catalyst for the?
So the heat is the curing. It helps cure the epoxy. So
got it.
So the type of carbon fiber, it's called pre-preg carbon fiber or material.
So it has some resin.
The resin's already pre-impregnated into the cloth.
Okay.
So you get a sheet of pre-preg, you pull it out of the freezer. It has to be kept frozen, otherwise it'll cure or just go bad. So it needs to be kept at 0 degrees, constant 0 degrees. You take a roll out, you would document when you took it out.
How much time do you have to work with it?
Usually about, depending on the material, but you could have 6 to 24 hours to work with.
Of like once it hits 75 degrees, it starts to cure.
Yeah, you start developing an out time on it, and it's calculated that resin will be good for 24 hours out in 70 degrees because everything we did was in a clean room, kept at 70 degrees all the time.
It's like my house.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call it the clean room from now on.
There you go.
Babe, we could work with carbon fiber in here. She's looking at me like, what are you talking about? It's an inside joke. Don't worry about it, babe.
70 degrees and also humidity. Humidity played a factor as well. So that it had to be kept at about between 30 to 70% humidity.
Oh, so the lower the humidity, the faster it cures.
No, the lower the humidity, it makes it harder to work with. The lower humidity
starts to stiffen up.
It starts to stiffen up, but it also affects the bagging material, the plastic that you cover it
Not as
with.
pliable.
Well, no, it becomes brittle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it pulls the humidity out of the bag, and the bags become brittle.
Right.
So it's tough to work with, because then if you blow a bag, you ruin a part.
So how are you doing this at home?
Well, so I don't use an autoclave at home. I use what's called vacuum infusion.
So an autoclave is like if you're making aerospace precision, no failure can be accepted type thing.
Exactly.
To where the tolerance between what aerospace needs and what racing needs are miles apart.
Not miles, but yes.
They're far enough apart where you don't need a...
Yes.
You're not asking the neighbor to put on some heat lamps in his garage. Like, hey, bro, we got to get this thing up to 350.
Typically you want... So it's in the design for aircraft parts or aerospace parts to have about a 33% content of resin in the part. So it's a perfect calculation to where it's the perfect for strength. So if you have too much
66
resin,
fiber, 33% resin.
Yeah. If you have too much resin, it's going to be weak and heavier, or not enough resin, it's going to be weak because it's you're not fully saturated. So with the autoclave, at a certain temperature, the resin starts to become viscous and flows into the part, and all the air is evacuated through the pressure and the vacuum of the bag, and then it's cooked. It's cured. Some cures go for 12 hours.
So if you're putting a rack of parts in at this oven, it's got to have a bunch of air lines attached to it that are sucking every single bag.
And transducers. So transducers measure the pressure, but also the temperature.
The transducer was my next thing I was going to bring up.
So there's so much.
So so the transducer measures the pressure in the bag or the vacuum
and
in the bag,
but also the temperature.
Because as soon as you get to like a 0, that means there's no more air can be sucked out, or is that how it works?
Yeah. When the pressure is reached maximum.
Listen, I only know this because in my business of granite and tile, we have a vacuum lifter to lift parts, lift slab off the table, and it's like, this thing's got to get to like.
Before
otherwise, if it starts going this way, you're going to drop that slab on somebody.
Exactly.
But so now at home, so the first thing you make from some running boards.
Yeah.
And what's the weight savings on a running board?
So, stock running boards, 2 pounds something.
No, that's a Mexican or Brazilian running board. I have a German running board.
Okay, a German running board.
And that's got to be 5 pounds.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Heavy gauge.
Because I actually had a set of NOS German ones just not long ago in my hand, next to a stack of ones made in Brazil or Mexico, and it was incredible, the weight difference. But you remember back in the early days, you'd stand on a bug running board and no issues at all. So. Yeah, so like 2 pounds for the aftermarket ones are the ones available today, which would have been the ones out of Mexico or Brazil, which is a thinner steel, easier stamp.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
So with the carbon fiber running boards I make, like a lot of the real street race guys are running them, they weigh 7 ounces.
7 ounces?
7 ounces. Holy
crap.
That's 2 plies that's a top ply of 6 ounce twill weave, and then that's a single ply of the filler carbon that I use, which is called a Seartex. It's a multi-axle, which means it's spun in different ways to where it achieves the maximum strength of the material.
So it's a multiply, because there's different types of carbon fiber. There's the stuff you do with the big chunks.
Yeah.
Then there's the woven, and you can tell by the weave.
You get a harness
the strength
weave.
of it.
You get a harness weave and a 12 weave. Strength-wise, they're about the same, but it's what everybody wants to see is the 12 weave.
Right.
That's
the cool looking one.
That's the cool, which everybody likes.
So it's interesting. There's a guy here in town that makes a complete carbon fiber bus shell here in town.
Yes, I've seen. Yes.
He reached out to me. I went to go see him, track him down, and get him on the podcast, and we had been in conversations. But I might have to bring you with me when I set up my meeting to go with it. And so I asked him, I said, what is the difference between, like, first my question was, why?
Yeah.
Like who needed this?
It's a cool factor. Definitely.
Right. And he says, well, a stock bus body weighs 700 pounds and this one weighs 70.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's insanity. Right. Like to see that how light it is. And so it's crazy to think that the technology's gotten to the point where somehow someone's still trying to connect it with the Volkswagen. And the guy's goal was he wanted to have somebody start making rental electric carbon fiber buses. So I guess you go carbon fiber to offset the weight of the batteries, but I don't think the weight of the batteries matter because the horsepower of the motor is not 40. You know what I mean? My friend Kenny Fitzer down there, podcast alumni, Kenny, he's down there. He made the wide body buses at the SEMA show. He's now making himself another one. That's going to be it's electric. It's an electric drift bus. So it's full, made from all new sheet metal, the whole body.
Nice.
Put Tesla batteries across the bottom and the Tesla Y motor, whatever the super big motor is for that in the back.
The large Tesla unit.
And now he's got Corvette front suspensions, which oversteers the front end. So that bus, I'm hoping it's at one crazy weekend this year. I'm pushing him like, bro, I need you. It's for sure going to be done for SEMA, but I'm trying to get him to get it to one crazy weekend because he's still, he builds all kinds of stuff, but still a VW guy to the core, right? So I think it's so exciting when you see people that, and he's got a big 5-axis table mill that he makes all his parts.
Oh yeah, yeah. So he patterns
from.
Yeah. I worked for Audi's design studio for a while. I was the head of the composites department, and that's what we did too. Yeah. If we needed to make a roof for an Audi to mimic the interior for the headliner, we would 5-axis it. We would glue a bunch of MDF wood together, and they would just 5-axis this. Then we start pulling molds off of it to make the headliners.
Yeah, he uses an epoxy cube.
Yeah.
Some sort of epoxy cube that he uses.
There's a Ren board. There's tons of different modeling boards.
It's super cool. And so, and for me, I get so geeked out about it because it's like, if you really think about it, like, could you make a carbon fiber steering wheel?
Yeah, you could.
Like if you have obviously the hub would be steel.
The hub would have to be because the notched hub.
Right. So you'd get that part out of the steel, and then you could make the frame, the ring, and everything out of carbon fiber.
Well, there's tons of guys doing it already for your Acuras or your Lexuses or whatever, or your Z cars. Yeah, there's people doing that now. Yeah.
So the first thing you made is running boards. Now you started doing this in 2004 and you're like, oh, I'll do this little side business. And then next thing you know, you got slammed at work. You're like, sorry guys, can't make nothing. I got no time to breathe.
I took orders and I was having a hard time filling orders because I just got so busy and I just stopped.
So you made running boards.
I made
How many things did you make? And what was the name of the company you're selling it under? Was there a name?
No, it was still CarbonJoe. So
it was kind of if you know CarbonJoe, you can get some parts.
Exactly. So, the big thing, forms. It was a big thing before all of everything.
Right.
And actually on the Samba as well, I sold some parts. But the German look forms was huge.
The German look is my style, man.
Mine as well. I love the
German look.
There's not enough in California or in the United States in general.
Did you see the live stream that I did from Germany?
Yes.
Or not Germany, but from the Air Mighty show?
Yeah, Air Mighty. Yeah. Oh, I know. Yes.
I'm looking at these cars like they got carbon fiber door panels. He's got to have $10,000 in carbon fiber pieces on the Super Beetle. And I'm thinking, I don't think anybody makes this stuff here in the States. He has, but you know what I mean? But again, it's like over there's a need, a demand, a request for it. Over here.
Because there's a circuit race.
Right.
Yeah. The guys have the big Type 4s.
They're doing 300. He told me 320 horsepower. The guy who builds the motors is like $45,000. It's like turboboxster.de is the website. And it's just crazy because you go over there and it's like, you look at this Super Beetle and it's a race car.
Yes.
It's just like you're looking at an Audi or whatever. Yeah. The stuff they got in this car is like, dude, that's rad. Like everything they got. And
yes. And most of them, there's so much carbon, the spoilers, the bumpers, the fenders.
Oh my gosh.
The engine, the Type 4 shrouds, the intakes, everything. Yeah. That's what my goal, what I want to achieve with my convertible is I'm going to make my 79 a German look convertible.
Whoa, that's awesome.
And
so let's get back. I get so excited. We just keep going off topic. So you made the running boards. So what was the breadth of product that you were making back before you stopped?
Back then, running boards. I started making front spoilers. I made a roof spoiler.
Front spoiler, like an air dam, like the cami style.
Cami, yeah.
For Super Beetles?
Yes.
Okay.
And then for Dominic, he wanted a drag wing, his rear wing. I made him a rear wing.
Now that part, that's going to be pretty easy. It's 3 pieces, or would you make it 1 piece?
No, it was 3 pieces, but I made it to where I used a core, a foam core to it. So it was a sandwich construction. So it was 1 ply of carbon on the bottom and 1 ply on the top. And Yeah, I want to say it weighed like 7 ounces as well.
The whole wing?
The whole wing.
And the aluminum wing was what, 2
A
pounds?
couple pounds. Yeah, easy. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, the podcast I did with Ron Loomis is like, those cars hit a certain mile an hour, it's the shape of an airplane wing, and you need a wing for downforce to hold that thing to the ground.
Yeah.
And so that's why all the big turbo cars have those big
that
wing
big
boxes
box.
on the back,
Yeah.
mostly to keep the car on the ground.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the German look, so a lot of the guys overseas, they have that rear spoiler that's about 6 inches above the rear window.
What does that do?
So that's it's called a
Like a rear wind
it's a
foil?
spoiler. It's an airfoil spoiler to where as the air comes over the top of the roof, it hits that and it diffuses it and breaks up the vacuum that's created behind the car.
Because the vacuum slows it down?
The vacuum slows it down. Yeah.
Got it.
They end up with a red stop. And you know, there's a couple people online. Either I know there's several topics in the forums for the Samba that guys have argued it this way or that way, and people have they've attached 100 different little 4 inches pieces of yarn on the back of their car to follow the flow. To show the flow of and some guys swear by them. They
Really?
work. Yeah, I've got a couple customers. One guy I just sold one to. He's going to put it on his drag car.
Yeah.
To help him at the end of it.
I wonder. I mean, there's no better way than to just take it and slap it on a car and
let's try it.
and see what it does at the end. I mean, especially if you got a guy that's running consistent, right? I mean, that's one way to find out how much it's going to work.
Yeah, but that's my plan with the 79 is when I have time and when I'm not making.
Well, you're retired now, right?
I am retired, but I'm not retired because I'm making parts, and but I'm still enjoying myself so much.
So you do this out of your garage at home,
yeah.
And so now you have molds. So have you made fenders?
No, I've so many people ask me to make fenders and hoods. I haven't made fenders. I do want to make fenders. I will start with rear fenders for earlier cars, just for the drag race guys. I could come up with probably 1.5 pound rear fender.
I just ordered, because I didn't know you do this. We weren't pals yet, but I just ordered through Mark V Fiberglass, which is here. I ordered rear fenders from them, and the rear fenders are carbon fiber. Now I'm curious, when they say they're carbon fiber, I'm wondering, like, is it legit carbon fiber, or can people use like a carbon fiber in a fiberglassing process to make the same thing? I don't know.
The latter, yes.
Yes.
So typically, what you see other companies doing, they'll still do a gel coat mold. They'll spray in their gel coat and they'll lay in their carbon fiber.
So it's like a carbon fiber top coat
on
a chop base?
No chop, just carbon fiber. So they will use a carbon fiber. They'll use a harness weave, which is just a square weave,
right?
And they'll gel coat their molds just like they do with a fiberglass part,
right?
But instead of using the chopper gun or a chopped fiber, they'll lay in whatever ply. I don't know how many plies, 1 or 2 plies of carbon fiber, and then they'll lay in their resin, and that's how they'll get a carbon fiber part. It's lighter, it's stronger, but it's not 100% carbon fiber part.
And it's going to have a really high resin content.
Yes, because
much higher than
if it was infused.
Right.
With a hand laid part, you're guaranteed to have almost a 1-to-1, with resin and fiber.
So I'm gonna have to go check out their operation over there. Just not that it matters to me, because I ordered just widened rear fenders, like 2-inch widened fenders was my purpose for doing it. I was just assuming they were going to be fiberglass, but they're going to be carbon fiber. But now that we're pals, I'm gonna have to drag you up here when I go inspect this bus, because I'm sure it'd be interesting for you to see it, as well as I bring somebody who knows what they're talking about, instead of me just babbling and be like, oh yeah, carbon fiber, twill weave,
it's
double mesh harness, triple clutch. That's the jumbo chop clutch, right? You got right there. Then I'll just look like a total idiot. But no, it's interesting, the technology of the things that people can make with the stuff, because sometimes the biggest problem that we have, I think, as a group of guys, is we're pigeonholed in kind of how we think. We think only this way until we finally have a breakthrough and go, well, why can't you just do it out of that? I mean, that's where things start, right?
Yeah,
so if it's up to you, like, what do you think, what would be a cool part for you if you could, like, let's say they said, hey, Joe, come on back to Northrop for the weekend. Make whatever parts you want. You have access to all of our stuff. If you had all free reign to go do whatever, what would be some things that you would make if you had the access to the stuff at work that you used to be able to do? What do you think is the toughest thing to do that would make it easy if you did have that?
Oh yeah, making autoclave parts would be super easy.
But the advantage of an autoclave part versus a non-autoclave part, what's the difference?
Strength and weight.
So you can make it lighter in an autoclave.
Your resin content would be lower and it would be lighter.
Oh, really? By what percentage do you think?
Probably at least 20%.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a lot of people make the carbon fiber Porsche style shrouds.
Yes.
Why has nobody made a carbon fiber regular shroud?
Stay tuned.
You know what I mean?
I know.
I mean, I think it's interesting because you have
well, with the stock shroud, you've got how many veins inside?
There's a couple. Yeah.
So very hard to replicate in a mold situation.
Right. So all carbon fiber is done in a mold. Well, there's got to be some sort of thing for it to form to.
Yes, you have to form it to something. So you have to start with a pattern.
So it would have to be multiple pieces.
Yes.
So you'd have to have let's say the back with the veins attached to it.
And then you would bond on the front. Yeah. So you'd make a 2-piece
and that front piece, you could actually make it where it's got the top half of the shroud that it would, let's say there'd be an overlap seam, almost like the early steel shrouds where they just had the pinch weld across the back.
Yes, exactly.
I'm glad we worked this out together. So, but I mean, I in my head, I keep thinking and I keep going back to, of course, you've been here today at the surface of the sun where we have my studio.
Yes.
Where it's a little warm.
105. So
heat is constantly something that we think about where you guys take for granted California, because although it's quote unquote hot, like this weekend it was hot out there, right? Mm-hmm. At these events. I mean, too hot for me to wear pants. I'm wearing pants and I'm like, this is getting pretty gamey. Crazy. And out here, I can wear pants when it's hot because it's not humid.
Yeah. True.
So you don't start getting swamp crack.
Heat.
Yeah. You don't get swamp crack. Right. And so I'm there and for you guys out there, you'll just start driving and then it's cool. Like you don't really feel like you need air conditioning right now because
in Tustin we're blessed with a 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon sea breeze comes in.
Yeah,
and it's comfortable.
Yeah, so here that's why my mind always goes to okay, engine parts. What engine parts? Because I thought if you did a whole turbo shroud thing, because the first thing that I had that was carbon Kevlar was, and this is some of my questions, right? I had the shroud that was made by Sharp-Built, and it was a carbon Kevlar red tinted shroud that caught fire when my brother was driving the bus one year, busted by the ridge. So a little corner of it's melted a little bit, and the rear breastplate's kind of haggard. What's the difference between carbon Kevlar and carbon fiber, and why Kevlar fiber?
Well, Kevlar. So you see your different colors of rainbow colors of Kevlar. So
the sheet good itself is available in different colors.
Oh yeah. So you orange, red, green, purple. There's so many different. So it's a strand. They incorporate a single. It's not strand. It's a tow. So it's several strands is called a tow.
Okay. So like a miniature rope.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that's into the weave. So they'll replace on a 12 weave carbon fiber. They'll replace the tow. One of the strings of tow, or every other one, they'll weave in the Kevlar, which is dyed to whatever your desired colored wants. So you have a blue,
red.
So every other red tow is the Kevlar that's been dyed red.
Got it.
So that's how that look is achieved.
I think I might have it here.
Yeah. As far as strength, not much difference.
Well, what did they use Kevlar in composites where you worked?
No, because Kevlar is elastic. So technically for aerospace applications, Kevlar don't work.
Because Kevlar, I think the most popular place we hear of Kevlar being used is like bulletproof vests and stuff like that.
Exactly, because it's elastic. It absorbs.
Got it. Yeah. And carbon fiber shatters.
Yeah,
it just once that resin hits it, it becomes super.
Exactly.
It's super brittle.
Yeah, the Kevlar is elastic, but it achieves the look that.
After we're done with this podcast, you're going to look at the valve covers that I have out there, because you said the valve covers may be ones you made, because I don't know who else would be making carbon fiber Type 4 valve covers.
You're right. I don't know. I made So I started making valve covers back in 03 or 4, whatever. And yes, I was making Type 4.
Now, how hard are valve covers to make? Like, what is your prep time and lead up time before you can make your first set of valve covers?
Months.
Between making the molds, also, it takes.
It wasn't full time either. It was a few hours here or there. But yeah, I remember the first valve covers I made were Type 4s.
But the mold is made of what?
So it's also made of it's fiberglass and epoxy resin.
Okay.
So to make a mold, you don't need carbon fiber. You just need a good strength fiberglass, but it's heavy. So my molds for my valve covers, they're better than a 1/2 inch thick.
Yeah.
Because the way I make the valve covers, they're compression molded.
What does that mean?
So I lay in the fibers, the carbon fiber,
mm-hmm.
and then I will every other layer I'll introduce some resin to it. I'll wet it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final layer, I'll lay in some more resin, and then so you have the A part and a B part.
Right.
You have a female and a male.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm laying up everything.
So when you say compression mold, it's the two molds pressing together.
Exactly.
Got it. Because like on a fiberglass mold, it's just the mold. You lay it up in there, and that's it. And that's why you're saying you have to put so much resin, because you got to soak it from the backside instead of squeeze all the excess resin out, which is what happens in that compression mold.
The compression
makes sense.
It's a couple strong C clamps, but so much. I had to do so much to figure out where I was getting resin rich areas, and then I had to compensate for the actual material thickness too. So it took a while.
So now you're going to settle a question that I had with Adam Wick, because Adam, I took my Type 4. It had those carbon fiber valve covers, the only real carbon fiber part on the carbon cab. Everything else was paint. It was Gorilla Dust and Gorilla Dust and magic. I was like, we were supposed to, he said, I don't want to drill through those. I don't want them to shatter or whatever. Can you drill through it just like a regular thing? Is there a process to drill through it? Like if I wanted to vent it.
There's a process, but it's all in the bit. So you need a special bit to drill it. You could drill it with your regular twist drill,
mm-hmm.
but you'll only use that drill once, because the Kevlar and the carbon will dull that bit quick.
Really?
Yeah. That's why in the industry, we use either a dagger, it's called a dagger bit. It looks like a dagger, or a reamer.
Oh, so it's like a flat blade.
Yeah, it's
spins.
A flat blade with the two edges cut at an angle to pierce it.
It's actually just carving. It's carving it out.
Yeah, it's piercing it. Yeah. Or a dreamer, which is a drill reamer.
Oh,
so it has 8 flutes on it. And it like a reamer.
It's tapered.
It's tapered, and it pierces the part. But yeah, that's to drill.
But it wouldn't shatter, holes. Right?
No, it wouldn't shatter.
He was just worried about, like, I don't want to ruin them. And
if you approach it slow and just go into it slow, but you might dull your drill bit.
But now we have the conversation where people say vented valve covers don't make any sense. There's no pressure in the.
There's no pressure.
There's no pressure in the valve cover.
Yeah.
And why can't one of the guys listening to this podcast make a video, put a pressure gauge on a valve cover, put your GoPro camera under your fender, and drive that thing 6,000 RPM and see? It would be interesting. How easy would that test be to do for somebody? I mean, I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
you're not doing it. Well, we got to get somebody that's listening to this podcast to do it. Send me the video.
Yeah.
Because that would settle all of the
venting. Yeah.
Because you get that yes vent, no vent. And then when you look at Porsches, I don't know if any Porsches have valve covers vented from the factory.
Gosh, no, they're the Porsche valve covers on the 6-cylinder is a brick.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So maybe it's just a thing that we have. Oh, but they also have overhead cams, mm-hmm. which is different than what we have with a push rod. The push rod venting, but does Porsche?
So the purpose of venting the engine in the first place is so your oil, you cavitating your oil, you're building up pressure in your oil system. Right. So that's to vent it to the atmosphere. So on the larger engines, if you have blow by,
right,
which you're going to have a certain percentage of blow by in an engine. That's just the way it is. So I mean, I don't see the advantage to vent, but I'm not an engine builder.
Right.
Nor do I claim to be.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that, because
that's a question for
again,
Adam.
It's people that are like, well, we just, people have vented it, but it would really be interesting to have somebody actually put a pressure gauge on a valve cover. And
I can't imagine you'd see a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I don't know.
If it's vented out someplace else, be it, through the.
Because you think about it, right? Well, where's the vent? Because in theory, what I've heard is that when that motor's running at RPM, the thing gets like half full of oil, which then leads me to believe, like, if that's half full of oil, where's the air coming in and out of? Because now you're covering the push rods.
Yeah.
Right. So that's going to be up. I mean, I don't know. This is for different for different minds, and a lot of guys now at this point are using vacuum pumps to get any of the blow by out of the motor because it spins the RPM faster. So there's different philosophies that people have for some of that stuff. But
the blow by on my 7.3 diesel is ridiculous because it's a diesel.
Yeah, well, it's running 20-to-1 compression.
Exactly.
So it's interesting. You brought up your diesel because we were talking earlier, and you in your job, you were a problem solver.
Yes. And
then we were talking about the difference living in California, the expenses here and there, and you were talking about your diesel that you actually had converted it to using vegetable oil on your big 7.3 diesel.
Yes. I again, a problem. And was it 02 or 3?
Yeah, when out of nowhere, diesel spiked over gasoline.
$5 a gallon. I'm going, wait a minute. I drive my truck. I was driving it, 300 miles a week back and forth to work or whatever, and going up to see my parents up in the Antelope Valley on the, every other weekend or so. Yeah, I would go through 3 tanks a month. So yeah, this was killing me. So like everything, this is a problem. So I started researching, and then there's so many, powerstroke.org. There's so many different forums. I started researching, and there was a couple of guys that, the diesel engine was invented by Randolph Diesel to run on peanut oil back in the day. Yeah.
No. Again, we start going down the conspiracy rabbit hole of like, these guys didn't want us to. No, but I mean, like, what's crazy is, and if I can find it one day, I should look for it. I have a document of something, and I had this conversation with, who 10-foot Doug is?
No.
10-foot Doug's a bus guy. He's like 6'6". I mean, he's a big old lanky dude, and he is an engineer. He's an engineer by trade, and he's a thermodynamics engineer. And we started talking about, I ran into some guys in Boulder City. I mean, this is 30 years ago, that they had developed a horizontally opposed engine that created 0 emissions and had unlimited RPM and didn't require a cooling system.
Wow.
So brakes really, and I had this conversation, and I have a video cassette of this engine running. It was called the Duvo Power Engine. So anybody listeners out there to listen to this, you guys can find the patent online if you look for the patent. I found it one time. I never found it again, but it's the Duvo Power Engine, and it's kind of a single stroke motor. But it was really interesting because when I was talking with these guys, I said, well, why wouldn't you just... They were like, oh, yeah, we took it to this place. It's a certified place to get the emissions results, and they wouldn't give it to us because there was 0 emissions. They said there was something wrong with their equipment. They couldn't give us the printed document.
Reading. Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah. And then to further, and if Doug's listened to this, which he listens to the podcast, if he listens to this, he's like, everything that I say is contrary to what the law of thermodynamics is, right? Like it says, and the engine, it did not increase... It produced, the higher the BTU rating, the more horsepower it created.
Yes.
And all engines fire 1 cylinder at a time. Mm-hmm. This fired 2 at a time. And it ran off of a Scotch yoke design, which is like the easiest way to talk about a Scotch yoke is it looks like the rail, it takes rotating power and turns it into linear motion, right? So it's like the big and little wheel in the locomotive with the bar going in between, right? So it has a crankshaft with 2 offset pins, and there's pistons on either end, and as the piston's sliding back and forth, it's compression, combustion, 1 stroke, intake, and like as each one's going, it's firing 2 cylinders at a time, so it creates the equivalent power of an 8-cylinder engine. And the reason I bring all this up,
I was gonna say, where are you going, Bill?
The reason I bring all of this up is because they say it works like this because we're stuck thinking about things in the practical ways that we've been taught in which they work. When I started telling Doug about this, Doug's like, no way, man. It goes again. Like right away, he's completely dismissive, doesn't believe it. I got a little bit of hope, but they talked to me and they were like, oh, somebody told us you're a great sales guy. And I said, well, just give me 1 motor to put in a car. And if I go to the races and beat everybody, everyone's going to want one of these motors. And then before you know it, you get all these motors out into the environment and there's nothing they can do at that point. which brings me back to the, diesel is supposed to run on peanut oil.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's crazy when we can take some things. And I think to myself, like, when we have the air cooled engines, like, what's someone going to come up with next that would work? Like, could there be a way to inject a small amount of oil in the combustion chamber as it's going to cool, to get cooler head temperatures, stuff like that?
Yeah.
I mean, the technology that we have is crazy. I did, there's a guy, and I've made a commitment to buy some of his stuff, and I got it. It's called, he's at the SEMA show every year. It's like, Zintech or something like that. I'll remember the name. And he has a double cab in his booth every year. It's like a stock double cab, and he's got a gauge. It's a digital readout gauge, but he has these thermocouplers that go back, and you put one on each cylinder.
Oh yeah.
And it gives you individual cylinder head temperature.
Yeah.
But the thing is universal. The brain is, and you can have a program, engine temp, oil pressure, like whatever you want. And we're talking, he says, yeah, the brain that I have is cheap. He says the expensive part is the actual quality of the thermal conductor. He says, because it's a special type of metal and combination stuff that you can get cheap ones or you can get really expensive ones. Yeah. But I've been wanting to get one of those things so that I can check the difference of like cylinder head. And part of the problem with getting gauges, then you're looking at gauges and freaking out all the time, right? Like, that doesn't look normal. But to see
if you have a data logger that logs all this,
right,
then yeah.
To see what you could do to try to increase and better horsepower and technology, stuff like that. I mean, this last week I was spending so much time with the Schleys. I was at the Schley Museum, and I interviewed those guys for a little bit. They were doing a whole thing at the same time, and their technological advancements in the 10 years that they were involved. Last week I did a short podcast about it, but in the 10 years they were involved in drag racing, the amount of advancements that they had done from beginning to end, and it was just purely doing, like, focusing on power to weight ratio, spinning RPM faster, trying to get as much velocity going through that motor as possible, lightening it up, using every little tiny thing that eventually got them to break a record that stood broken that they held for a long time. And I think about it the same way, like where we're at in the hobby now. But like, all of us guys are in this generation of skill set, because who knows what's coming up next. Yeah. And us having this skill set, and we're just trying to force it into this antiquated beam this front end,
60-year-old
air cooled
design.
technology. Yeah. But I think it would be cool to do a carbon fiber, do like a carbon fiber fan shroud, like a stock style fan shroud would be cool. If you could have your list of parts that you would make, like what would be, if you could say, well, Bill, I got these molds and I can make A, B, C, and D.
Well, it would pertain to my car, first of all. It would be things like, fenders. I would love to make a fender, rear fenders starting with, and then front fenders and buckets for front fenders. I want to make a 911 style dash for a Super Beetle.
Oh, that fits inside the Super Beetle?
Yeah. I have one, and I will pull a mold off it, and I'll make one. Yeah.
Is it an old school S&K dash, or are you going to...
It's
was it for a Super Beetle?
No. Well, yes, the one I have was for Super Beetle. Yeah.
So there's Chris Addington and Steve Connect started a company called S&K Show Car Designs. I have a catalog of it for somewhere here. And they did the fiberglass, the wraparound dashes that were in the 80s cars. Oh, yeah. So I'm wondering if it was from those guys or from somebody else, because what's crazy is all the stuff we look for, if you go online and start looking at German stuff, go on these German websites, they make it. Like,
CSP.
Carbon fiber hoods. So like for your car, it'd probably make more sense for you to buy a carbon fiber hood than to make a mold, or would it just go against what to make your own?
I would make my own. It's just the way I am.
The mold for your hood would have to be gigantic, yeah?
Oh, yeah. That's where my limitations come in. I'm stuck in a 2-car garage. Actually, 1 car, because my car's in my garage.
Right.
So, yeah, I've got a big workbench, and I'm limited by space.
So if you're off work, you'll make a mold. Let's say you got 2 weeks. The wife's gone with some friends. Do what you want. All the supplies are there. How long would it take you to make a mold for your hood?
Well, let's start with deck lids. So I'm going to make another deck lid.
I saw the deck lid. I saw you made one.
The
deck 67
deck
lid.
lid.
Yeah. Super. Super. Now, what was the difference in weight on the deck lid?
Well, that stock 67, I think I put it on there, was like 14 pounds for a 67 convertible deck lid with hinges. And then mine, if I remember, it was 2.7, 2 pounds.
2.7. So if you end up doing the math, like if there just a percentage of weight savings that you do by square inch of what you do the size of the part?
Sometimes.
I mean, could you calculate, okay, if I do all carbon fiber, because I'm sure, those cars I was looking at in Europe have carbon fiber doors.
Yeah.
Doors,
yeah. But those are for race applications,
right,
of course.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, whatever you could, but approaching a door, see, whenever I look at a part, I look at it from a mold making perspective.
It's two pieces.
How am I going to tackle this?
Right.
So especially like with the deck lids. So my mold is a 2-piece mold.
Right. So
because
you need four parts to make that mold. You the inner, the outer of both pieces.
Well, actually, so it's the main skin, which is the exterior of the deck lid, and then I've got to represent the
reinforcements.
Flange. I've got to get the flange in there too.
Right.
So you have to make a top part of it to catch that flange, and then but I also have to make another mold for the hinge panel.
Right.
So that's another mold. So to make that 60, and if I'm license plate housing. So if you want a complete deck lid with a license plate housing, that's 4 molds.
That's great. Well, 4 molds, and each mold has 2 pieces.
No, the only 2-piece part about it is the deck lid, the whole deck lid itself to catch the flange. So I've got the deck lid,
right? So I've got an insert
mold that goes on top of the deck lid to get
to where you run the flange around.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I take that back. So my license plate housing is also a 2-piece mold because it's so the stock license plate housing is it's aluminum forged piece.
The cast aluminum piece.
Aluminum, yes. I'm sorry. Cast.
You're talking about
piece.
The license plate light. Yeah.
It's cast. It's a 1 pound, 2 ounce cast part. So to catch the lip where the 3 bolts go in and attach to the deck lid, I have to make a mold for that as well.
So you make like let's just call it the lampshade part.
Exactly.
And then, that plus the flange is 2 molds.
Yes.
And then you have to make the housing mount for the bulb, or is that just an attachment on the inside?
That's left up to the guy that's going to put it on.
That's the guy who's doing it. Yeah.
I could do it. Yeah, I can make a little.
No, but it just continues to get more and more.
Exactly.
So once you've got the mold made, how long does it take to knock out a part? If you got the mold made for the deck lid, you're going to make another deck lid. What kind of time does it take to make a deck lid?
It'd take a couple hours, but there's more to it because sure, I have to lay in the material, I have to infuse it and everything, bag it and let it cure. Time to cure is about 24 hours. But
so the whole 24 hours, it's got steady vacuum on it.
Steady vacuum, yeah. So the way I make my bags, when I vacuum bag a part, I leak check a bag.
So do you make your own bags?
Yes.
Good grief.
So will you have
I'm with you. It's a special shape.
Yes.
So you have to make the bag.
No, that's the thing about doing this is there's consumables. To achieve this part, you're going to throw away a bunch of stuff to get to this part. So you're going to throw away your bag. You're going to throw away your tape to seal the bag.
Bag's a one-time use thing?
Yeah, one-time use.
So do you have like the plastic to make the bag, the quick attachment to put on it, and then you have a seamer that seams the 2 pieces of plastic together?
No, no. So you buy what's called a tacky tape. So It's a tape that seals around your mold, and then you lay your bag over it, and then you have to put pleats in your bag to compensate for the shape of the part. So you have to go oversized on your bag. So you pull vacuum on that, but your consumables, being your bag, your tape, your flow media, and your what's called peel ply. So that seals everything down in. So there's, you throw it's the bag I use is about $9 a yard. The peel ply is $6 a yard. The flow media is $4 a yard. Mm-hmm. And then the tacky tape I use to seal the bag is $8 for a 50-foot roll. So that's trash. That becomes trash. That's the consumable.
But the good thing is that you do this out of love for the hobby. And more.
Yeah, the good thing.
It's definitely not a way to get rich. You're not getting rich doing this.
I'm not getting rich doing this.
No.
If I wanted to take this and get rich, I'd be making Civic hoods and Mustang doors and tails for other parts.
Yeah.
For other cars.
Now once you make the molds, is there a shop you could go to and say, hey, I need to make 25 of these, which would just make more sense for you to go? I mean, do you have resources like that? That you know, or you haven't even looked into?
I really
because it's your hobby.
It's my hobby. Yeah, I haven't. So like the first parts I made were the running boards. So those tools are 24 years old, 23 years old, and you know the way I was trained to make a mold, that it's going to make hundreds of parts. So I made this mold to make hundreds of parts, and I have been.
So it's barely broken in yet.
Yeah. I don't know. I've probably made at least 30 or 40 pairs of
Joe,
running
now
boards.
I got my brain turned. I'm thinking like, man, a guy could just make a guy could make the padded dash like for a Volkswagen, but to make that out of carbon fiber would look cool. Or even the impy accessory dash that goes on top of the dash for that.
But again,
I guess
a mold maker's view of this is
right. That's a lot of pieces.
How hard is that going to be? Yeah.
You would almost need to be able to machine it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I watch, oh boy, can he do stuff? And he's got a guy that he just sends to go out and digitally scan, 3D scan stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then just like, it makes it, again, a lot easier.
A lot easier.
Then he machines the mold out of that epoxy block.
And that's where technologies come. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't, I was taught to, when you look at something, to make a mold, you have to look at draft. So you can't just, you jig lock apart if you make a mold without the proper draft. So it has to come out. You make
right. There's got to be a way. There's going to be some consumable part. Like we just saw, we're at Rick Sadler's house the night for a barbecue, and he had the last Superflow head that came off the cast. And it has a set of aluminum waste. I don't know what you would call it. Slag spears. Something.
Yeah.
The size of gigantic binoculars coming off of the exhaust ports, which is where the aluminum comes in. So you're probably talking, there's 2 pounds of wasted aluminum that are part of the piece to make the mold. And then the entire backside where the valve cover mounts is a solid block of aluminum that has to get machined down. Mm-hmm. But it was the last Superflow head that came off the production line. And it was like, looking at that, you're starting to understand the amount of waste that goes into manufacturing something, which then they just take it, throw it back in the vat.
Yeah, for casting, yeah.
Right,
well, Klaus would know that. I mean, designing his own Type 4 heads, yes.
I was hoping he makes an extra set. I need that.
That'd be nice.
I need Klaus to make that extra set. You know what I mean?
There's waste.
Gerald,
There's waste in what I do as well. So I have to save money and save cost. I have to calculate the amount of resin I'm going to use on the square feet or square inches.
Because that resin's more expensive than fiberglass resin.
Yeah. Polyester and epoxy resins.
So carbon fiber is 100% epoxy resin. There's no polyester in it.
Typically
if you're going for a strong part.
Yes.
Strong and light.
Yeah, polyester and vinyl ester also is strong because that's what 99% of the boats are made out of, polyester resin. But, with chopper gun but they also infuse full hulls of boats, larger boats, because there was a big thing at the AQMD that the styrene that was being put off by all the polyester that was, causing headaches and this, that, and the other, and emissions. So they wanted everybody to go to a closed vacuum infusion system so it wouldn't put off huge amount of emissions. So, but yes, epoxy is 2 to sometimes 3 times more expensive than polyester. You could pick up just a basic laminating polyester resin for about $50 a gallon, where my resin has to be heat resistant as well.
Right.
So if anything next to the engine or anything exposed to the sun, with a part in the sun can get up 160, 180 degrees.
Well, my limited knowledge of things, as we all know, is a broad limitation. But I'm in the granite business.
Yeah.
And we use epoxy to epoxy edges together and lamps like that.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, like, just do a thicker material with no laminated edge if it's going to go outdoors. And they're like, why is that? My friend has it. I'm like, if it's in direct sunlight, it's going to fall. It's just a matter of time before the edge of your countertop falls up. You're like, oh no, use a special AB epoxy. Like that does it. Yeah, it may hold. Now it's turning grayish yellow.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it turns colors in the sun. So it's interesting that, especially decorated engine compartment parts and pieces like that, that some people don't pay attention to that type of that exposure. And so now when you look at some carbon fiber stuff, can you look at, obviously you could probably look at it and be like, Yeah, that's a splash mold in
I-
fiberglass.
I can tell other people's parts, other car parts, whatever. If I go to a car show and there's a Mustang that's got that forward engine bay lip or whatever that's made out of carbon, I could look at it as, it's probably a polyester part, and you could see where his gel coat's cracking. And
So you can tell. And is there a lot of stuff in the market that's like that because it's faster and easier to make?
Yes. Like everything.
Because you gave me a couple of parts. You let me hold that. I held the license plate
for
light.
Dino,
I think it was.
Dino, for his license plate holder.
Crazy. I mean, insane. It was like holding a piece of paper in your hand, and then the glove box,
and also the valve cover.
I could not believe how light they were. Like normally, it's like how much weight you're really saving. Like when you fill those things, it's like incredibly light. So I think I think, people go for the look more than the performance, but I would think if you kind of went through a car and did doors, deck lid, fenders, all that stuff, you could probably shave 200 pounds from a car.
Easy.
Oh yeah. Cause they've got these guys have super thin aluminum bumpers. Like they're not carbon fiber bumpers because they're to look like but I mean that like you could take the bumper and just twist it and probably just,
oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But these, I mean,
stock Super Beetle bumpers are like 45 pounds.
And when you look at back to the Schleys, when you look at those guys, the majority of a lot of their advancements came from figuring out ways to save weight.
Inertia, how, the mass over motion. I mean, how to lower that mass. Yeah.
They kept going over and over on during the tour. And if you guys get a chance to reach out to the Schleys, or you're going to be out there and want to check out the Schley Museum, hit me up on my Instagram or my Facebook or Built Let's Talk Dubs, and I'll get you guys access to where you can go do that, set up an appointment and go check it out. They have the technology. They just go through the process of showing the wheels that they were doing from an original steel wheel, which was like 9 pounds, to like the last wheel they were using was like barely legal to be on the street. Like could just kind of hold the car up, but it was like 3 pounds.
But how many iterations of that wheel did they go through?
Oh yeah. They've got a rack of the different wheels of this was the steel Volkswagen. This was the aluminum Porsche one. Then this was this wheel. Then this was that wheel.
They went to a thinner and thinner material each time. Just to save weight. It's the inertia.
So I wonder if they would do a carbon fiber wheel hoop.
There are carbon fiber wheels. There's companies that make a carbon fiber wheel for cars. Yeah.
And so they're pretty durable. They're kind of brittle. If you hit a hard 90-degree angle, or something, they're gonna shatter.
They'll tear. Yeah, they'll shatter. That's a lot of the reason why they don't make like for go-kart in the go-kart world. That you've got your pods, your side pods, and you've got your nose piece and stuff. A lot of that stuff's just plastic because if it's made out of fiberglass or carbon fiber, you get in an accident, it's gonna cut you.
Yeah.
There's a safety issue there.
Yeah, so on some of that stuff is, that makes sense. But I think when you're talking performance and drag racing and stuff like that,
different applications. But for wheels, I know there's several companies. I'm pretty sure there's one in England that makes a carbon fiber wheel.
That's wild.
Yeah,
based on the carbon fiber stuff that I've seen that you've made, it's got to be crazy light if it's a real carbon fiber.
I had somebody ask me that a while back about making a carbon fiber Fuke, and you'd look at it. Only way I would do that. Well, first of all, I would be afraid to do it out of liability and just safety in general. But
when you infuse the stuff, you're going to infuse yellow things inside here for off-road use only.
Yeah, exactly. Approach everything as off-road use and sign this disclaimer.
Right.
But it's doable. You look at the casting. It's a male female casting, the way that the wheel's made itself. Yeah, it's completely doable.
So if you let's say hypothetically you were to do that, how would you put the steel? You'd have to put steel sleeves somehow for the lug inserts.
For the lug inserts, probably.
You'd have to get steel sleeves in there.
So there's different grades of epoxy, different strengths of epoxy. Like an aerospace grade BMI epoxy is very, very strong. It's surprising how strong it is.
And it would work like you put an acorn nut right to it.
Acorn nut to it, and it would hold. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's, you were talking top of the line. This is,
super expensive
epoxy. And the process, yes, it's an autoclaved part. So
you're not making it in the garage.
No, the expense would be just out of this world to make a full blown carbon Fuke. Yeah, it would be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's insane to think of the things that you can do with this particular material. But I just would like to see, the stuff become, but it's funny. It's because you look at carbon fiber and you and I are kind of the same wavelength, right? German look, all this kind of stuff. But everybody wants like the stock look, which you could paint it, but I mean, it'd be kind of a shame to paint it because.
Well, so I mean, a lot of the guys over in Germany, if they run a rear carbon fiber fender, they'll just leave the exposed part where you would put like a stone guard,
right,
and the rest they would paint the color of the car. So some people they want it for the performance of the being lightweight. Yeah.
No, I think it's cool, man. I'm excited to see what, if you're going to get some time and get some stuff put together. I'd love to see, some of the other stuff you're putting out. I know we're looking at the time and it's like, we've just been gabbing it up for a long time. And your wife's like, where are you?
Yeah,
what exactly did you
get?
Did you get held up? Yeah, no, we got to wrap this up, but you'll be back. You got family here. You're going to come back. This is the last time we're going to have you here. Cause now that you're local, pretty much you got family that lives here. We'll have you out for sure. I for sure want to get you, find out when you're going to be around next so that I can call that guy and try to set up when you're here and I'm here so we can go see that carbon fiber bus shell, because you having the knowledge and then me going over there, just being able to kind of film it and check it out. It would just be interesting to get your take from being a guy that worked with composite for a lot of years and just, seeing, cause I got to think like if you're making a bus body, you would have to want to use an autoclave because that's got to be durable enough to take impact. Yeah.
Not specifically. It doesn't have to be. So when I saw that, the first thing that came to my mind is, holy crap, the size of the mold to make that thing so it's one piece, I believe.
Yeah.
So the mold to make that took a lot. So first, I mean, you picture a bus body. So you've got to pull several molds because there's so much draft, the windows, the frames and everything. So you got to pull several molds off of it first and then reassemble the whole thing. And then, if it's infused, you've got to lay and you've got to seal that. You've got to get a good vacuum seal on that big part to achieve that. Otherwise it's waste. Yeah. And that's the thing. Every part I make, I vacuum leak it. I check it, several times. Otherwise it's a waste. It's a waste of my time.
If you get a leak, that vacuum leaks, it may look like a good part, but it'll have a D-lam somewhere.
Yeah. Or the surface will have pits, or it won't have a nice surface to it, or whatever.
So is that part of the
that's part of the process?
Is like when you vacuum it, you get that shiny exterior finish that looks like that's nice like glass because
that's how the mold looks. You want your molds to look perfect and shiny, and that's what your parts will turn out to be.
Got it.
If you have a perfect infusion with a zero leak bag, and that's you can go on YouTube and see so many people trying their first couple molds. Everybody thinks, I'll get a mold. I'll pull a mold off my C5, tailgate, and I'll start making parts or whatever. But I mean, I feel for these guys 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. And you've just spent, if you're buying 5 gallons of epoxy resin, that's $800 or $900. And then you're buying, 30, maybe 20 yards of carbon fiber. That's another $300 or $400. So there's a huge initial outlay to do any of this.
Right. Just to try something.
Yeah. So I give credit to the guys that want to try it, but I mean, you got to kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah. There's no question on that. Well, Joe, I've had a good time. And I think the two of us could sit here and for a long time.
Yes. And I wanted to thank you personally, because what you're doing for the community and for the hobby and bringing it up, I think it's fantastic. And there's so many of my friends, like Dino Mendoza, I would love to see him on.
Oh, we're going to get him on. We're getting Dino on there.
One of the things, after I retired, I met Dino, and he wanted a lot of different stuff for his car, carbon, because he made like a modern Cowla car. Mm-hmm. So he's got a lot of my parts on his car. And but he's also Real Street race director.
Right.
And he puts his heart and soul into those races.
Yeah.
And it shows. And like last Saturday, we went down to Verona for 8th Mile Drags, and to see Sean Gears there, and David and Adam. It was just so awesome.
I know. If
So
I
awesome.
weren't in my chop top, I'd have drove down there. I just got done driving that 2 hours from Northridge down to,
it was a drive from Tustin. Yeah.
and I already bubbled the paint on the apron. Sorry,
Oh.
Scott. If you're listening, Scott, sorry about that. Apparently the header tube is too close to the apron because it just bubbled.
Oh yeah.
There's a little bubble in the paint, and I've got another one.
See, those are things. So I make a 67 rear apron, and that's something I have to consider too. Is okay, the exhaust is right there.
Yeah.
So Chuck Studler's car, he's building another car.
He's a drag and drive guy, Chuck Studler.
Yes. So he won last year's Real Street Series.
Okay.
And so he asked me to build. So the 67 convertible deck lid, he brought me a deck lid, and I said, yeah, I can make a mold, no problem, because he wanted to save some weight on his car, and he wanted a rear apron as well. So in me doing the rear apron, first of all, again, being the mold maker, I got to think, okay, I'm going to make it out of material that's going to see some heat, because you're going to see a lot of heat on that rear apron.
Now, would it make sense to make the outer skin carbon fiber with an inner heat shield out of aluminum?
That's one way to approach it, yes. But there's other ways too. So, being a problem solver, I can weld, I can fabricate. So I've got a welder's blanket. So I started looking at, okay, we could put welder's blanket back there. But
Yeah, you could.
That would
make it
work.
where it snaps in, almost like put button snaps on there.
Exactly.
Look at this, man. We're just solving all the world's problems. You guys give us another hour, man. We're done.
We haven't even got into solar stuff. But yes, that's another problem I had that I solved too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I have a Class C motorhome.
Uh-huh.
And when we got it, I got tired of running the generator for 4 hours to charge our phones. Oh, this is driving me crazy.
Right. The amount of energy expended to charge these little tiny phones
and
was
while
like,
I'm watching the tank empty at $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
So I just did the research and I put solar on my motorhome.
You did solar with the inverters.
Yes. So I bought a 240 watt panel for $100, and then I bought a Victron converter, and then I wired it all to my two batteries, and so the converter was, I want to say 130. So I had 200. I probably had $300 into it total, where people were charging $1,500 to put a solar system on your RV, and yeah, we're off the grid.
So you run all day charging phones, running
whatever.
appliances.
I got a 3,000 watt inverter to where I could run the TV. I won't run my microwave or my AC, but yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. Or even this is what. Yes, Bill, we're going to go off on a tangent.
Yeah. I'm ready. Tangent's my middle name.
So again, to solar. So we get so many people knocking on our doors for solar systems or whatever.
Yeah.
So I dabbled a little bit with solar, an attic vent. So I had
just a solar powered fan to cool the airspace
to push the hot air out of my attic.
And so what was that going to cost you if you had to pay somebody to do it?
Oh yeah, it would again $2,000 to have one built and installed. Yeah. So I had I have a Suzuki Samurai. And that's what we towed behind our motorhome.
Right.
And I had a 16-inch
tin top or soft top?
Soft top.
All right.
I had it with a fire-breathing 1,300cc engine in it. Man,
maddeningly slow.
I had a 16-inch electric fan, 12-volt fan that I was going to put on the radiator, maybe pull some horsepower out of the engine. But anyway, I had this fan been kicking around my shop for a while. And one day my wife was out. She goes to a Remart where they sell a lot of stuff that people return from Costco. And they had 100-watt solar panels for $70. And I said, okay, bring that home. So $70, she brought on a 100-watt solar panel. And I hooked up my voltmeter to it, and it was putting out 13.3 volts. So wait a minute, let's hook it up to the fan, see what it does. Sure enough, it just spun that thing up like crazy. So I built a box to house the fan. I put it up to my attic vent. I ran 2 wires up to the 100-watt solar panel. I put up my roof. I put a fuse and a switch in line. And when the sun comes up, you could hear it spool up. And when the sun's down beating on it, it's just buzzing like crazy.
Really?
Yeah. And it's all of, I had that fan for $20 or so and a 70-watt panel, and it does its...
Now, here's a real question. How much could you tell the difference in the house?
Oh, yes. So we had a 110 attic fan, and the savings, my wife was saying, yeah, it's about $20 a month we're saving by changing it to...
So you already had an attic fan up in
Yeah,
there.
we had a 110 fan.
Your house is built.
60s.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it doesn't have all the blown in insulation and all that
It
stuff.
does. It does, but that was
Yeah,
but
but
it-
you're just
still-
looking for everything to keep it to run streamlined. No,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. I mean, listen, everything. Some of you guys out there that aren't dads or have families, stuff like you guys, just things happen when you all of a sudden have kids and people leaving the lights on and running power, just unnecessarily spending your money, right? Because it's not like it's an unlimited supply. But yeah, it's that whole. It's the process of making the most out of everything that you have,
Yeah.
right? Creating efficiencies,
Mhm.
and that's the thing that we're doing with our Volkswagens, right? It's trying to be as efficient, fast, and lightweight, and
lightweight. Yeah, exactly.
cool looking. Don't forget about cool. It's gonna be
And
cool
fun.
looking too.
And fun. Yeah. I mean, it was so great to see the DKP crews and everything, all the cars and everything.
Oh yeah,
That's just, it
That
was
was-
awesome.
it was a great weekend, and I really enjoyed. I enjoyed this weekend. It just seemed like there's a lot more. Maybe it's just a lot more of the old school people around, but it's just so good to see so many people that have been connected to the VW scene throughout so many things over really a Beetle.
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
Beetles,
yeah.
it's mostly Beetle
The
guys.
people's car.
And a lot of cool events this last week coming up. I'll probably do a podcast on that coming up about all the different stuff that we had going on this week. But it was cool. I get the cool part is I got to meet a lot of people that some people listen to the podcast, some people don't, and
Mhm.
getting some of those people that don't listen to the podcast to listen to it, and then also get them to come on in the future, like you're a listener. And I got you on, and I said, "Oh man, you're the guy who makes the carbon fiber parts. That's super cool." Because it's always good to know the people that make the stuff so that like there's anybody that get it and just have somebody make it over the border somewhere and just peddle it as like high performance stuff, but it's not. It's a different to get a guy who's an enthusiast,
Yeah.
who did it for work and is doing it out of the love for the hobby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a different thing. And it's always, we talked earlier, someone's like, "Oh, I could monetize the podcast and get it filled with commercials." And I do a few commercials that I do for a few people on here that support the podcast. But it's like, I don't want to make this a job because it's something that I love doing.
Yeah.
And once it becomes a job, it's like, I really like doing it so much. So I understand and I appreciate everything that you're doing to bring into the
I'm not
market.
there yet on my parts, but right now it's supporting my hobby.
Well, when you're ready to go, let's talk dubs and let everybody know that we're ready to pull the pin on CarbonJoe. And if you're patient, you can get some parts and show some cool stuff and get some product from you. So, well, I'll look to have you back on, man. Listen, for sure. I promise you, I'm going to set up an appointment to go look at this carbon fiber bus and just go check it out. Cause I think it'd be interesting to see. And it'd be interesting to see if I had somebody there that knew what they were talking about. So
I want to see you build a German look bug.
I don't even want to tell you what I've been looking at for the past. Listen, what I've been looking at for the past 20 minutes while we're sitting here, while we're talking. You see this on my screen on my computer?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The turbo
Okay.
twist. I have 18-inch turbo twists too. Yeah.
Usually these guys run 16s because the 18s are a little bit too big. The 18s are the hollow spoke ones.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are the legit
And then you
turbo
have
twists.
the cups. Yeah. That are,
Then you have the Boxster twists, which I have that original to the Bull Run bus. But yeah, I have the makings. I have, like, that's the thing I keep going back and forth with. I have my Mexican Beetle out there, which has 4,000 kilometers on it. And it's like, I look at this picture, I think, all right, let's just rip the fenders off the thing, put these wheels on there, swap a big Type 4 in it with a nice big gearbox. And because it's got those seats in it that I'm 6 foot and I look like I'm 7 foot when I sit in that car with those seats. But, I need a German looker in my life, like 100%. I think I often go with like, why can't I just have one car?
Yeah.
I like to believe to myself I could have one German look
You've
car.
been bitten. Yeah.
So, but I don't know. It's probably not
and
possible.
we didn't. And next time, if I make it to One Crazy Weekend, probably not this year, but next year, my German look convertible will be Tesla powered.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I want to convert it to Tesla.
Yeah, that was a great podcast with Michael Bream.
Yeah,
I
with
mean,
Bream.
really, really well. So Chris Spicer, one of the guys that works there, he comes every year to One Crazy Weekend. He brought
awesome.
Electric Baja the first year he was here.
Awesome.
So he's, you need to come out to One Crazy Weekend. Matter of fact, Chris, I haven't responded to your email, Chris, but he says to me, hey, you should do an engine pull competition. And I'm like,
Oh,
you know what? If Chris wants to head that up, I'm put him in charge. I'll give him the space, make it happen. We'll see what they can break the record. I just met the guys, the Vance Bikers from Australia that actually hold the record, the Guinness Book World Record for it.
Wow.
Like a minute 3 seconds, I think.
I think I've seen the video.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
well, Joe, it's been great, man. Great,
Yes, Bill.
great chatting with you. Tell your wife I'm sorry. I'm sorry we took such like. What could you be talking about with these guys? Like, sorry.
Yeah. Here we are going on 2 hours.
2 hours.
Jeez Louise.
Well, it's been great. We've learned a lot.
It's a tangent thing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some more parts come out, and the stuff that I've seen that you've done is super good quality, and it's awesome.
I love doing it, and I love making molds more than I make parts.
Man, you're better than me. I love just getting the parts.
Yeah, I know.
I love being able to use the phone and be like, can I get the parts? And then putting them on and be like, hey man, this doesn't fit right. Like you're putting it on backwards. Like, never mind. I'll call you back.
Like Dino asked me, can I make a glove box door for an early car? And I never really thought about making a glove box door. I said, okay. So I went home and I happened to have an early glove box. And
Yeah.
I pulled a mold off the front, left a little bit enough for the lip. And then I took the glove box itself and ground off the inner skin from the outer skin. And then I pulled a mold off the inner skin, and it worked out. My first 2 parts worked out perfect. And then I trimmed them and bonded them together. And there you go. You have a 3-ounce glove box door.
3 ounce versus the original weight of the door.
1.2 pounds.
1.2 pounds.
A door is surprisingly heavy. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
1.2 pounds to 3 ounces.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to see more stuff that you be bringing to the market. That's awesome. And when you go full bore, man, we'll have you on. And we'll
Remember, I'm retired.
I know. We're gonna get some factory workers over there or something. Well, cool, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Appreciate
Bill,
it.
thank you.
Well, if you liked that podcast, and if you didn't, you're crazy, because that was such a great podcast. I really enjoyed interviewing these people and then building these friendships with these guys that are passionate about what they do, because there's nothing more genuine than people that have a passion for what they do. So I appreciate him. And speaking about passion, I have a passion for One Crazy Weekend. That's right, guys. It was going to get mentioned. This we're 100 days away from One Crazy Weekend. So I want you guys to get ready and go get your rooms reserved today. Rooms are selling like crazy. Don't get caught without a room. So go book your room today at letstalkdubs.com. We'll go ahead and get your room booked, and we'll see you guys October 2nd through the 4th. It's going to be a monster. This year, Thursday, it all kicks off on the second Thursday. There's going to be a poker tournament that's sponsored by VW Trends. Play poker with fellow VW enthusiasts for the prizes. VW prizes to be given away at the poker tournament, in addition to Friday during the day. Ross Wolf is going to be putting on a bowling tournament at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. So it's going to be a bowling tournament. Great time with all your VW friends. And later that evening, Friday night, we're going to do the world famous strip cruise. That's right. Last year, over 120 Volkswagens on the strip. This year, even more. I think it was 150 last year. But then we come back, get the car situated. There'll be reserved parking for everybody that's registered for the show. You'll have your own parking space you're going to go to. And then Saturday kicks off the car show. There'll be a top 20 picked. In addition to top 20, there's going to be a $1,000 prize for best of show. $1,000 for best of show. Cash money paid on the spot. Not like I got done dirty by House of Cards and I never got my $1,000 cash prize. But we're going to be doing that for the best of show. So if you think you got what it takes to win your $1,000, make sure you register for One Crazy Weekend today. So also there'll be specialty awards given out by Lanny Hussey, Buddy Hale, and Andy Finch, and possibly a couple other guest builders that'll be out there giving out some specialty awards for some of their favorite picks. There'll be a radical 80s display with some pretty cool stuff. Steve Connect, after a long few years, they're going to be debuting a new car by the guy who did the big things in the 80s. So I'm excited for you guys to come out and see that. So there's tons going on. Make sure you go to letstalkdubs.com, click on the link that says Showtime, and get registered for One Crazy Weekend. Don't miss it, because it all culminates with the world famous poker run, where everybody takes off throughout Vegas, gets your poker cards, comes back to the Orleans Hotel and Casino, and I deal you the winning card and pay you out cash money on the spot. So I'm excited. I hope you're excited. You guys got any topics, guests, or suggestions? Go ahead, hit me up at Bill at Let's Talk Dubs. And until next week, guys, later.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that